what it is. We tried. They took my $90 this month to take it to 1,000 people, but there's no way to test it. No way to test 1,000 if or we can't get. I don't know how you would test that. So anyway, yes, I'll get the new link for tomorrow's. Again, if you've got friends that can't get on, tell them it's recorded. It is being recorded. We'll get it out there. Kim's on the phone. Maybe they can do something with it right now. I don't know, but we'll try and have it fixed before tomorrow, so we can get everybody on. But it will be recorded. It is what it is, and I apologize. I thought we had it fixed. So let's roll, though. You know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. We're just going to keep rolling. I know some of you people are in the office, and many of the offices are having watch parties. We're just going to roll with this, and it'll be recorded. And I'm sure those people that didn't get on are going to be all upset at me. We will worry about that later. All right, welcome to boot camp. Lots going on, okay? And I'm going to cover a lot. So for those of you that maybe are new to JLA, you've never been to a boot camp, this is going to run just like a normal boot camp, okay? We're not just going over the new contracts. I'm not just going to sit here and like, here's the new contracts. I don't know about you guys. I watched at least 8 hours of other people's trainings on these new contracts, and they have it's so confusing. I don't even think they know what they're talking about half the time. If you listen to 3 different instructors, you get 3 different versions of what they see. It's a lot going on. So we're having this boot camp, but we're going to walk it through like we walk through every single boot camp. We're going to do buyers today. We're going to do sellers tomorrow. Okay. And we're going to walk through the whole process, not just the new forms. And I'm going to tell you why. There's a lot of people that are still doing the other things wrong. Now, the reason we're in this mess with the lawsuits and why we're having these changes is that there's a lot of people that just don't do this job correctly. And I'm not saying that they intentionally did it wrong. Maybe they were taught wrong. I know there are things that I do now differently than I did when I started because I know better, right? And I was taught differently, or forms have changed, things have changed, right? So where I need you guys to understand is that if you do this job correctly, we don't have these lawsuits. We don't have these issues. I didn't realize that there were brokerages out here that did not require buyer's rep. We've always required a buyer's rep. So there's just so much of this that was not done correctly. That's why we got sued. That's why we're in this mess. So that all being said, I'm going to teach you the right way. Now, for those of you that maybe are on here, or you're watching with a friend, maybe you're not at JLA. I think there's some non-JLA agents probably on here. A lot of this is my opinion. Okay, I'm going to warn you that up front. It's my opinion. And your broker may disagree with some of it. You may disagree with some of it, but I can tell you what I'm teaching is correct. Okay. What I'm teaching is correct. It's the right way to do it. There's obviously multiple ways to do some of this. And we know that. So, first of all, Kim and Amanda are going to be manning the chat bar. So if you guys have questions, you're going to put it on the chat bar. I'm actually closing my chat bar. I don't want to see it. I got too many other things to worry about on this call. I'm not looking at the chat bar. So if you have questions, Kim and Amanda are going to man that for us. All right. Now, the other thing that I want you to know is here's our numbers. So Kim and Amanda and I sat down. We went through these documents, making sure we have a good understanding of them. You are welcome to call us, email us, text us. Probably text would be easiest, or email, just because we don't need 500 people calling us at once. But here's our numbers. Make sure that you have this so that if you have questions afterwards, if they don't get answered in the chat bar, here they are. All right. But you know, my overall take on this whole thing, I firmly believe we're going to continue to do business the way we've done it. I'm not worried about, are we going to get paid? You're going to get paid, buyers agents. You're going to get paid. I'm going to show you all that today. Okay. If listing agents, we're going to talk about listing agents. If listing agents do their job correctly and explain the value of buyers agents, we're not going to have much of an issue. There's always going to be that. Even now, how many people do you know do every deal at 6%, 3 and 3? Oh, by the way, I know that there's a lot of these other Zoom calls that don't talk about percentages. I'm going to talk about it's my Zoom call. I'm talking about whatever I want. Okay. So what I need you guys to understand is it should be business as usual as far as the end result, taking a buyer and a seller, putting them together, getting to the closing table, and everybody get paid. Done correctly, we're not going to have a lot of it. We just have to do it differently now. Now, a lot of these forms look a lot worse than they are. They're not as bad as we think they are. It just looks messy, and we're going to walk through some of that. And there are some new forms you need to use in order to get paid. I get that. But at the end of the day, we just need to keep moving forward. That's why we're on here. I like live boot camps. We wouldn't have had a computer glitch on live boot camps. I couldn't do a live one fast enough. You know, this stuff all broke last week. As of Friday night, they were still changing forms, and they went live Monday. So that's why we're doing this virtual. But we do have 2 live upcoming boot camps with 4 hours of CE, Dayton, August 23rd, Katy, September 6th. Put those on your calendar, because I'm going to tell you, live boot camp is 1,000 times better than this Zoom stuff. You're going to get all the information here today, but there's just so much more energy in a live JLA boot camp. And if you're not at JLA, yes, you can come to all of our boot camps. We don't care, right? So just mark those calendars. This is how we all feel. Like, we don't like change. Nobody likes change, but change is good. There's some great forms that came out. I'm actually super excited about some of them, because I think they're going to be, the change is excellent. So you're going to get through it. Let's keep moving. All right, the facts, June 24th, that was Monday. All forms went active on Zip Forms, Transaction Desk, and Dotloop. They're active. They're there. You need to be using them. August 17th, the buyer's compensation is no longer going to be on the MLS. That is the drop dead date. It's going to happen. It is what it is. Okay. Now, pre-July 24th, so pre-Monday, any buyers or sellers that are under contract before August 17th. So you've got them under, an old listing agreement. You got an old buyer's rep, and you're under contract before August 17th, business as usual. You don't have to do anything. Okay. Now, come August 17th, and you've got a listing agreement that was done before June 24th, or you've got a buyer's rep that was done before June 24th, you're going to need one of the following. So basically, sometime around the 15th, you're going to start getting e-blasts from me saying, hey, you need to get these updated. So you're either going to need to do a new listing agreement, which is 1101, or a new buyer's rep, which is 1501, or they have this new form called Amendment to Representation Agreement. We're going to go over that today. It's 2701. 2701 allows you to do a 1-page update prior to August 17th that updates your old buyer's rep, that updates your old listing agreement, and you're covered. Okay. So let's review that. Start using the new forms now. I don't know how you'd get the old forms unless you saved them on your computer and you're handwriting them in or filling them in somehow. New forms are out here. Start using them. If you're closing before August 17th, don't worry about it. If you're under contract, don't worry about it. Okay. Anything after that, we need these new forms, or at least the amendment to the representation agreement. So there's no mention anywhere on the MLS of compensation. I've heard it. I've heard a million ideas. Oh, what if we typed up something funky, or what if we put it in agent remarks, or what if we put a document in the document section? No, not happening. Not going to happen. Not only that, if you're doing an IDX feed, which JLA has an IDX feed, when our websites are fed IDX from the MLS, we can't put anything on our website. If they can get back to the MLS in any form or fashion, you can't offer compensation anywhere that's going to get back to them. However, you can advertise buyer's compensation anywhere else. If you want sign writers, your personal social media, if you got a personal website that you just want to host, that's fine. Flyers, that's an interesting one. When I started, we had flyer boxes on all the signs out front, right? And we had fancy flyers in our houses we did. You can put them on there. You can put them anywhere else. You can advertise your compensation anywhere else, except for the MLS. Okay. Now, you'll also notice that all these forms changing are TR forms, Texas Realtor forms. TREC is not changing anything. That's why the 1 to 4 didn't change. That's TREC form. Why? It takes TREC a whole lot longer to go through this. They got to go through committees. They got to get public opinion. They got a whole lot of other mess going on and they just can't move as fast. So it will be the end of the year at the earliest before TREC comes out with changes, which brings me to the last one. Folks, we aren't done. If you think this is the end of it, you're crazy. It's going to change. We're going to have lots of changes. Heck, they're not even confident about the contracts I'm getting ready to teach you. They're already admitting there may be some changes. Now, again, they posted one set, and then Friday night, they were changing them again. So you're going to have to be ready. You're going to have to be ready. And you have to be fluid, and you're going to have to be comfortable with change, and you're going to have to stay on your email, stay on our social media so that we're telling you what's changing, and we'll keep having these. I expect to be doing a boot camp, a live boot camp, probably every month through the end of the year. So just be ready for that, because then we're going to be changing that fast. I guarantee you it's going to be a year from now before we have all the changes done and we're good. Mark my words. Okay. What's going to make this easier? Please educate yourself. Stay up to speed. If you just get on this call and this is all you ever do, you're probably not going to be knowing what you're doing. And again, uneducated buyers reps, sellers reps, uneducated realtors out here is what's caused this mess. Therefore, we have got to make changes to how we go out here and educate ourselves and be the best of the best. I want you to educate anyone that wants to discuss this. And then some of you have already had it. I know there was a Facebook post the other day about somebody was doing a listing appointment and the seller thought it was illegal to pay the buyer's agent. And that's so untrue. And here's the problem. The media made us out to be the bad guys. They spread false information. Heck, the president of the United States said something, and I'm paraphrasing here, like, oh, for once it's negotiable. No, it's always been negotiable. Nobody knows, but they make us look like the best. So we've got to educate. Stay away from arguing or defending on social media specifically. Stay out of that drama. Educate. You're going to need to build a buyer's presentation. If you don't have a buyer's presentation to prove what you're worth, because we're going to talk through what this is going to look like, these conversations with your buyers. We're going to talk through that in a few minutes here. But if you don't show them what you're doing, and we've created this monster. Why? Because we shelter our buyers and our sellers from what we do. That's part of what we do really well. We don't show them the drama behind the scenes that we're dealing with. How many times have you had a deal blowing up in your face and your client doesn't even know because you're trying to solve it before you get to them? That's what I'm talking about. Now you're going to have to explain this and you have to show them our worth. That's what's going to have to happen. Okay. Update or build a seller's presentation. You need to have these. You should all have a buyer's presentation, seller's presentation. And you're going to start implementing net sheets early and often because they need to know. I mean, if you've got a buyer that wants you to show them a house, the seller's not paying buyer's commission, they're going to have to know what that's going to look like because we're not working for free. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. And you need to stop saying, I work for free as a buyer's agent. You're never allowed to put that out there again. That was a big part of the lawsuit. They kept showing screenshot after screenshot of agents. I work for free as your buyer's agent. Well, that got us in some trouble. Don't ever say that again. You need to keep growing. There's lots of changes happening. And that's good. Change is good. Makes us all better. Stay positive. Very positive. The market is fine. At JLA, I think we're up like 8-9% for the year. I have agents here at JLA that are well ahead of where they've ever been in their real estate career. And these are seasoned agents, 6, 7, 8, 9 years in. They're having the best year they've ever had. Interest rates aren't good. We know that. But the market is still a good market. It's still doing great things. I saw on Facebook is that Melissa Jenny has 9 closings this month. 9. Right? So it's all about you working through the business, staying positive, growing, building your business, and doing the marketing piece. And that's the biggest piece of this. Okay. You know, I always talk about this with every one of my trainings. If you are not marketing, doesn't matter about these contracts. You're never going to fill one out. If you don't have a client, you're never going to fill one out. Who in here has already checked in on social media that they're taking this class today? If you haven't done that, you should do it. Okay. You've got to tell your people, I'm a realtor. This is what I do. And you got to market every day. Marketing and prospecting every day is the key to this. Then you get to write these contracts and then it's fun. That's how you get paid. All right. Working hard for something you don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. It's been stressful, but if we love it, we keep doing it. It's the name of it. We're going to get through it. It's all going to be good. So here we go with buyers. Now, I'm going to try and have you out of here by 11 today. I got an hour and a half to get through this. I know we had some glitches up front. Sorry about that again, but here we go. Buyers. Before I go into buyers, Miss Amanda Seidel posted this on our closed Facebook page. I thought it was worth sharing. You can get your ABR, accredited buyers representative designation, for free right now. That's normally $295 through NAR. I highly recommend you do this. Okay. It's free. Go take these classes, do this, get your ABR, And it will definitely make you more comfortable explaining the buyer's rep, the new stuff that's out here. I know I cut off the link, but all you got to do is go to NAR. I mean, Amanda's probably already put it in the chat bar, but we're going to talk about buyers. Why not have a buyer's accredited representative designation? All right, here we go. Buyers, this is not an impulse decision. You've got to be part of the process. We don't wake up on Saturday and say, we're going to go buy a new house. There's lots of discussions. Anytime somebody says to you, ooh, how's the market? You better be ready to talk real estate. They're not asking you that because they want to know. They're asking that because they're super interested. They don't care. We're not that exciting. So when people are having those conversations, make sure you're listening and you dive in, okay? They're looking for an expert and someone they can trust. They think still, there's a lot of buyers out there that think you're the one looking at their credit score. You're the one looking at their W-2s and 1099s. You're not. You need to explain that to them so that you know, I'm not in your personal business. I'm helping you find a house. So tread with caution all there, right? They don't know what they can afford. So you're going to have to get them to a lender. We'll talk about that. And they often know what they don't want versus what they want. So ask a lot of questions, dive into this. Gas is way too expensive to be driving people around and not know where you're going, right? I put this in here. This is not a new form. We're talking about buyers. And sometimes you get buyers that come to you as referrals. All right. So buyers coming to you as referrals. And this new form I love because it helps clean up. If you're getting a referral from another brokerage somewhere else, love this. Now, JLA, we have one in our document sections on back agent document section on the closed Facebook page. But this one is really good, especially for the fact that it talks through how long we're going to be using this form. So this is a good form. Start using it. It will help you not have issues. So one of the big issues with referrals, and it's on the second page here, is how long this thing runs, right? 4C right here talks about transactions. Is this during the agreement? Because there's a time frame on this, which I love. It's just, so I've had people, I sent your agent a referral 3 years ago and they finally closed. Seriously? You want to get paid on a referral from 3 years ago? There's a time frame in this document, okay? And then you can pick, is this a one-time transaction or they can get paid on multiple transactions? Maybe it's a sell and a buy and they're going to get paid on all those. Use this, folks. Start using this. It will make your life easier. So the reason I brought this up right now is sometimes you get a buyer through a referral, okay? But no matter how you get your buyer, first things first, I'm going to walk through this process. You've got to get an IABS signed. Wow, I'm amazed at the number of people that don't get this signed. You've got to get this out here. Okay. At the first substantial conversations around real estate, you've got to get them an IBS form. Now, this is the one form, as long as you've got proof, you email it to them. Maybe they don't want to sign it. I know there's people funky about signing, but guess what? In the new real estate world, they're going to have to get real comfortable signing stuff because it's the rules now. We can't do anything about it. The top two of this for JLA agents is filled up already. If you're non-JLA, your top one's going to be your brokerage, then your designated broker, your firm. The third line on here, JLA, that's your manager. If you're not sure who that is or what that is, just put me again. I can go on the third line again, John Altick, my license number. You're covered. You're going to sign the last line, or you're going to put your name in the last line, your license number, your email, and your phone number, and you're going to have your client sign this. I need this IBS. I need it. I need it with buyers. I need it with sellers. I need it with lenders or with leases. I need it. Okay. Make sure you get this done. It's not up for discussion. So you got an IBS signed with this new buyer. Now you need to get them pre-qual. It's really bad practice to show homes to unqualified buyers. Quit doing that. And it's not fun sometimes. It's your friend and she calls you and says, hey, I want to go look at houses. And you're like, I know them, but yeah, geez. But I mean, we've all done it. If you've been in this business long enough, you've wasted time, energy, and money showing people houses only to find out later they can't buy a tent. Okay. So one of the best things to do is blame me. Okay. Blame your broker. Say, hey, listen, yes, I want to go show you houses. I just need you to get over to my lender so we can get this process started. My broker's a jerk and he doesn't let us go out and show houses unless we get you over to a lender. He's just that way. Just blame me. They're not easy. Always blame me. That's going to be the answer to a lot of things today. Blame your broker. And if you don't work for JLA, go ahead and blame me anyway. They don't care. Just say, hey, listen, this John guy I know, he won't let us do that. Build a relationship with a trusted lender. Lenders, it should have an S on the end of it, and I'll tell you why. You got to match up lenders with buyers. Okay. If you send my 76-year-old father to a 27-year-old lender, it's probably not going to go well. They're just not going to communicate the way they want. Likewise, you got a 28-year-old buyer that is moving and shaking, and you send them to a 60-year-old lender, it's probably going to be a problem with communication there too. So make sure you have a good set of trusted lenders. Stick with your trusted lender. Don't just use a lender to do all your junk. Use your lender. If you're giving them all your tough stuff, give them your easy stuff too, please. Just build those relationships. And then a pre-qual versus pre-approved. I can write pre-quals for just about anybody. What's your credit score? The farther you are in the process, the farther you get into the pre-approval process, the better. Okay. It does help. It does make it easier. Right. And so, please make sure that your lender's trying to get them as deep in as possible. You give me a choice between a pre-qualified client and a pre-approved client. I want the pre-approved client all day long. Okay. Hey, I don't know what's happening here. Maybe Kim solved something, but I see 305 people on here. We crossed the 300 threshold. Maybe that's been figured out. I'm not trying them again. We'll do it tomorrow. Kim just popped in and said she got a new meeting link. We're not doing that. We'll just deal with it tomorrow. I'll host this thing again later today. All right. Buyer's rep agreement. So you got an IBS, you got them at a lender, you got them pre-qual. We're going into the buyer's rep agreement. This is mandatory, folks. There's no exceptions. The minute you cross the threshold of a house with a client, you better have a buyer's rep in place. You cannot go show houses. It's the law now. It's the law. And we've all used to do it. Like we'd take people out, and now we'd get the buyer's rep signed, but maybe not the first day, maybe the third day after we built a relationship. We're like, hey, in order for me to get paid, you can't do that anymore. Okay. I know all of you that work with investors, they're going to hate this because investors don't like to sign anything. Well, I can't show you houses legally. It's not even a John rule. This is part of the lawsuit rule. There's very few exceptions. If you're taking someone to an open house, let's just say there's a listing that's got an open house on Sunday and you're taking your client there because they want to see it, you better have a buyer's rep in place. The only real exception here are open houses where people are walking in off the street. If you're sitting an open house as a listing agent, or you're sitting an open house for a listing agent, because I know we do that a lot at JLA, you don't need to get a buyer's rep for everybody that walks through the door. That's the exception. There is no other exception. Now they have a short form. We're going to go over that today. And I have my views on that short form. But at this point, especially August 17th moving forward, you are going to have to get, every time you take somebody out to show houses, you better have the appropriate documentation in place. Period. End of story. Okay. Now who's policing this? The MLSs are going to be in charge of policing this, as well as the brokers. But here's what it's going to look like. I've already dug into this a little bit. They're going to be doing random checks. They're going to go on to Showing Smart and pull a showing that randomly somebody did on Saturday at 2:00. And they're going to reach out to the broker and say, I need, broker and agent, I need your buyer's rep for this showing. And you better provide it in a very timely manner. So they're going to police this. Now, I don't know what the fines are going to be. I don't know what the rules are going to be behind this. They've not established that yet. But just know it's going to happen. Okay. I had to mute some people because somebody was off mute. So I need you guys to understand that it's that important. And I know in the past we kind of did what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it and whatever that looked like. I know that, right? We can't do that anymore. Part of your process. And when you meet with people, say, listen, and I don't care how you present this. One of the ways I present is like, listen, we got the real estate industry got sued because we were taking people out and looking at houses without a buyer's rep. I can't do that anymore. You're just going to have to get it done. Okay. It's just the name of the game. It's what's going to have to happen. And we're just going to go down that path. Okay. So here we go. Now let's walk through a buyer's rep. This is the long form. It says long form at the top. I'm going to tell you it's still my preferred form. We'll get to the short form at the end, but we're going to walk through this buyer's rep agreement, start to finish, long form, then we'll go to the short form. A lot of this hasn't changed, but I left the blue. So everything you see today and tomorrow, if it's blue, it's new. If it's red, it's leaving. So red means it's going away. Blue means it's the new verbiage. All right, first things first, 3C. Oh, well, let's go to the top. Please give me your client's name and at least phone number and email. We don't need their fax number. We really don't need that. But definitely try to get us their information. It happens once in a while, and it's unfortunate when you guys are incapacitated and we got to track down your clients. We need this information, folks. So get that to us. Now let's go down to 3C. Well, guess what we can no longer use? Texas. If you've been to my boot camps for years, I've said, just put Texas in there, you're covered. You've got to be specific now. Okay. This was one thing that came out of this. You're going to have to be specific moving forward. Okay. Now we used to put Houston and surrounding areas. Yeah. I can't do that anymore. Okay. Used to do, big geographic areas. You're just not, you're not doing that anymore. Okay. I would say, if I'm doing this, at least give, cities, the Woodlands. If I'm showing in the Woodlands, I might put Woodlands, Spring, Conroe. Okay, just be more specific. Don't be so broad that they can kick it out and say, yeah, that's not going to work. Okay. So C has changed. A little bit of verbiage change. Instead of commences, they did begins. I guess commences was too difficult for people to understand. So we have begins now. Not much else has changed on this page. Everything else is good. But here we go. So this is all new. It's not new. They just moved it all together, and you'll see in a minute, the red looks exactly like this. So they made it very clear at the top here under 7 that the broker's compensation is not set by law nor fixed, controlled, recommended, or suggested by the Association of Realtors, MLS, or any listing service. Broker's compensation is fully negotiable. Broker independently determine their fees. Broker is prohibited from, here's the big one. Need you to read this last one. Broker is prohibited from receiving compensation for brokerage services from any source that exceeds the amount stated in this agreement. All right, how many times have you taken a buyer out and you got a buyer's rep for 3% and you take them out and they end up at a builder and the builder is giving you a $5,000 BTSA? You're going to have to do an amendment to the buyer's rep in order to legally receive that BTSA. When we've got the amendment here, we'll get to that. We'll talk about that. Okay. But you can't just, if it's not in, you can't take more money than what's in your buyer's rep as a buyer's agent. Okay. That's a big change. Okay. Because before we'd get those and we didn't have to get anybody's approval. We got what we got and it didn't matter. All right. So 7A, broker's fee when earned and payable, client will pay broker 3%. I like 3%. Of the sales price or a dollar amount. You can put a straight dollar amount in there. On leases, it's a percentage of 1 month's rent or a percentage of all rents paid over the term of the lease or a dollar amount. Okay. Now, it really looks right there that your buyer's got to pay that, right? It's always been this way. That's always been in here. Okay. Source of compensation. Broker will seek to obtain payment of the fees specified in 7A, first from the seller, the landlord, or their agent. If such persons refuse or fail to pay broker the amount specified, client will pay broker the amount specified less any amounts broker receives from such persons. So what that says is, in layman's terms, if the seller's not paying me, then you got to pay me. Now here's where I'm going to get really specific about this, because it's not on the MLS anymore. And the MLS always was the big dog in charge. If it was on the MLS, they legally had to pay it. Well, now that it's not on there, we got a whole other animal going on. Okay, so we need to explain this in detail. Now, here's where I'm going to get really specific, because I feel like with so many of these other classes I've watched, they're not specific. I'm going to get specific on you right here. I think you have a conversation with your buyer right here, right now. It's like, listen, I don't work for free. My broker doesn't allow me to work for free. I don't work for free because I got to pay my bills. And RE&O insurance won't cover you working for free out here. It's just the way it is. So I've got to get paid. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm going to get my 3%. But there are going to be a lot of sellers still willing to pay me. not all. What do you want to do, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Do you want me to only show you sellers that are paying me, or do you want me to show you all homes? And if they're not paying me, you're going to pay me my 3%. How would you like to handle that? I think this is a conversation you have right then, right up front, right at that time. Because I know what 99% of buyers are going to say. Well, I don't want to see houses that I got to pay you. I don't have that extra money. I only have enough for my down payment and my closing costs. That's fine. I want you to get it in writing. Send them an email. Per our conversation, you're only wanting me to show you houses where the seller's paying me. Can you respond to this so that I have it in writing from my broker? And then from then on out, you're texting. I'm going to text every listing agent, because if you call them, they won't answer the phone. Texting, what are you paying on 12122 Pinelands Park Lane? And you're going to get a response. And then I'm going to show you how to handle that in a minute. Okay. But you're going to ask, and you're going to know up front, okay, this house is paying me. If they say we're not paying anything, according to your buyer and their email back to you, they don't want to go see that house. Now, if they send you that house and say, I want to see this, you call them or text them and say, they're not paying me, so that would be a house you have to pay me on, and they still want to see it, rock and roll. This whole lawsuit was to try and get away from steering, and all it's done is create legal steering. Because I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask any of you guys to go out and gals to go out here and show houses not knowing if you're going to get paid. Somebody got to pay you. And I'll stand my ground on that, something fierce. Okay? The rest of this is the same verbiage that's in all the other stuff. Okay. This was in the other one, the old version. We just didn't talk about how to explain this. In the past, we didn't need to, because everybody was paying us via the MLS before the news media got involved and said they didn't have to. And so it's all going to depend on that listing agent and how good a job they do of explaining the value of a buyer, bringing buyers to your house. Okay. This is what it looks like. And I know there's a lot of questions around it, and you're going to have to get comfortable with it. Okay. But if you just tell them, listen, we're going to be, we're going to look at any house you want to look at. I'll take you to any house, but somebody's got to pay me. Right. Somebody's got to pay me. That's the end of the story here. And if they say, hey, I only want to look at houses where the seller's paying you because I don't have that, good. We're not going to go look at those other houses. It's that simple. Here's the other thing. I think that the builders are going to drive a lot of this, folks. And we're going to talk about listings tomorrow and how to explain that to your sellers. But the builders are going to keep paying. Builders are going to keep paying. So you may end up selling a lot more new construction because resale, they're not paying you. I'm not doing this. Sorry, not doing this. All right. I know there's questions. I see the chat bar going nuts, and I hope Kim and Amanda are doing that. You guys all have my email later. I'm not going to stop and read those. I get caught in the weeds. Okay. And Amanda and Kim know they can stop me if there's something that we need to address. They're going to butt in and say, hey, John, we need to talk about this. But the big thing is at the bottom here regarding bonuses and others compensation. If you go show a house, and we're going to talk about this, and it's got a bonus, before you can accept that, you're going to have to get your buyers to agree to that. Just FYI. Okay. Now you know why I'm telling you, you better earn your keep. Gone are the days of you showing somebody two houses, writing a contract and not explaining your worth, because they're not going to want to pay you for that. Right? They're not. You're going to have to work hard at building a buyer's presentation and explaining what you do and how you do it and all the behind the scenes stuff that you sheltered them from. You're going to have to stop doing that. At the bottom, F, protection period. It bleeds over to the next one. I typically put 60 days there. That's at the top here. I usually put 60 days. Now let me share this with you. So you got a client, you've got a buyer's rep, a full buyer's rep, because this is a long form, full service buyer's rep, and it's for 2 months and it expires, and you've got 60 days there. That's good. They can't buy one of the houses you've shown them for 60 days unless they go under another buyer's rep with another agent. So then your protection period's dead. So if somebody quits using you but signs a buyer's rep with another realtor, that's 60 days or whatever. I like 60 days. You can put 90 days in there. I wouldn't put less than 60. Then your protection period's done. They can go buy another house using another realtor and you can't do anything about it. Just so you know that. H is, I typically use Harris County, but all of our offices are allowed to take payments. So you could use the county in which you are operating out of. Not a problem. Okay. 8, representations. The one thing here is D is relocation company. I'll let you in on a little bit of relocation here. Everybody can do relocation. Don't let the relocation companies dictate that for your clients. A lot of times they'll come and say, well, I've got to move, but I got to use a relocation company. And they said I have to use their realtors. That is a lie. They do not have to use their realtors. They want you to. Here's why they want you to. Cardis, largest relocation company in the world. Cardis is owned by Realogy. Realogy also owns Better Homes and Garden, Caldwell Banker, and somebody else. Berkshire Hathaway. I don't know who else. No, they don't know Berkshire Hathaway. So Better Homes and Gardens, Caldwell Banker, whatever. There's 3 of them. They want you to use theirs. The point is they want you to use theirs. So all they have to do is say, no, I've got my preferred realtor that I want to work with. Now, you got to do all the documents. I, as a broker, have to do all the documents, and you got to pay it. I approved one yesterday. You got to pay them 42%. That's what the relocation company's getting. Off the top, they get 42%. But hey, some money's better than no money. Some money's better than no money, but you can do relocation. Don't let anybody tell you can't. Intermediary, number 9. You really want to be able to check intermediary status. Now, intermediary here in this situation is anytime that you're taking a buyer to another JLA listing, any JLA listing, it's intermediary. We have 1,000 listings right now. There's a good chance you're going to stumble across a JLA listing that they want to see. So make sure that you are, please make sure that you can check intermediary here and show them those houses. Okay. It's rare that the buyer cares. If they say, oh no, I don't want to do intermediary, that means they've been burned in the past and they want no part of it. But most people, it's not going to be an issue. Okay. Evidently Kim got something fixed because we're at 318 people in here. So anybody that you know that couldn't get on, that wants to get on now, it looks like they can get in because we're at 318 people. So, let's keep moving here. So, 10 is kind of interesting. It's a competing clients. I've had this happen a little bit more recently where they're like, oh, I didn't know that you were showing another buyer the same house you were showing me. Yeah, I mean, we're going to show houses, and first come, first serve. Okay. Broker's compensation is moved. All that red is going to go away. Okay. Just know that it's all been moved to the broker's compensation anyway. This is all going to go away. This whole page is already moved over to the other section. So there you go. That's why it's funny. I always laugh when I was putting this together. If you notice at the bottom, it says page 6 of 5. That means because once they take out all the red, this will be a 5-page document. All right. We got mediation, description, default, attorney's fees, limited liability. Neither broker or any of it, we're not liable for anything. Okay. So this basically, I love this limitation of liability piece. This is why I don't like the short form. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. Addenda. If in my experience, if the TAR people feel like that they need to put a box here for addenda, we should probably use it. Now, we don't require all these forms. Make sure you understand them. It's absolutely new agents and seasoned agents. It's absolutely okay to have more documents in a file than what is required by the broker. So obviously in 16, you're going to have to do IABS. There's no, you can't have a buyer's rep without an IBS. But I love general information and notice to buyers and sellers. It's one of my favorites. We don't require it at JLA, but if you're a good agent that's dotted their I's and crossed their T's, there it is right there. Okay. The other one that is required here, and we're going to talk about it today, is wire fraud. You've got to give your people the wire fraud warning. I'm huge on that. We'll dive into that in a little bit. Okay. 18, fair housing laws. Do not get caught playing in this realm. If you feel like their fair housing is being violated, it's a big deal. Okay. It's a big deal. Okay. B, we're not inspectors. We're going to want them to get an inspection done. We're not appraisers. We're not surveyors. We're not engineers. We're not any of that. Okay. And that explains that. So that's an area where it saves you sometimes because they come back and say, well, why didn't you know it was only 1.2 acres instead of 1.4? Well, we're not surveyors and we don't know those things. All right. All right. So at the top here, Title company is the first one. We close everything at JLA at a title company. You're not allowed at JLA close with an attorney, because attorneys can do these documents too. Now, let me explain to you right now what a title company is, because I think people get this very much wrong a lot of the times. A title company is an insurance company. When you close at the title company, it's not just so they can process the paperwork. You're getting insurance. Your buyers and your sellers are getting insurance. And that insurance says, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, you bought this house and it's free and clear. There are no encumbrances. Nobody's going to show up in a year and be like, hey, you bought my house, you owe me money for it. You want to close at a title company. Quit closing outside of title companies. And boy, when I tell you, usually it's investors like, hey, we can close with my buddy that's an attorney. Red flags should go up, because they're not clearing that title. There's something wrong there, because there's no attorney out here at their office in downtown Humble that's doing the work a title company does. So pay the title company, close at the title company, get the insurance involved there. All right. Well, I didn't want to go there yet. So that's not up for discussion for me. We will close everything in the title company. That way they can do their job. Okay. D, this is a home warranty. Legally, folks, you got to tell your buyers about a home warranty. I recommend at least trying to put them in every contract, but you need to explain a home warranty, because you can get in trouble by TAR if you don't explain that they can get a home warranty. I actually know a local broker that got in big trouble because one of the agents didn't recommend a home warranty. Buyer came back later and said, nobody told me I could get this. And they got in trouble. Okay. And even though it's right here, you still need to explain to them that you can get a home warranty. We'll talk about home warranties today too. All right. E, I'm big on this. When viewing a property, you are being recorded. There's no may here. You may be recorded. There's no may here. You're being recorded. Every house seems to have some sort of camera in it. I need you to be specific with your buyers on this. So we're at a point in our business that they follow us. Our clients follow us in their car. We don't ride together normally. So when they follow you, they pull up in the driveway. You need to have a conversation with them at the first house in the driveway and say, we're being recorded when we walk up to that door. They may have a Ring doorbell. They're going to have recording. Even if the house is vacant, they still let their cameras run because it's protection. I don't blame them. Tell them, let's not talk about the house. Good or bad. If the house smells funny, let's not talk about it. Good or bad. If you've got a bunch of kids with you, this is the time to be like, hey kids, we're being recorded, so let's be on our best behavior. Okay? Because when you do those things, it just upsets sellers and they want to call me and complain and be mad and have all these issues, right? I'll give you a good story. We had the listing. Another brokerage brings the buyer. They're in the kitchen around the island. And the wife says, this is the one. Full price. We want this house. This fits everything I want to do. And the agent says, hey, it's been on the market a couple, 3 weeks. Let's go ahead and let's offer a little less. Let's offer 20 grand less and see if they'll negotiate. She goes, that's fine, but I want this house. Well, Mr. Seller was listening to the whole conversation in his office downtown. What do you think the house sold for? Full price. Okay. Just be smart about what you're doing there. Okay. Be smart about it. Now, for those of you who've been to JLA boot camps before, you know there's a few times during the boot camp where I get a chair out. I stand on a chair because I want to get your attention and I want you to listen. Well, I can't stand on a chair on Zoom. Hang tight. I'm going to get your attention. I had to come up with something good. So you got to give me a minute here. I got something good for you so that I get your attention. Are you ready? All right, here we go. So I got your attention. Got my new hairdo on here. Are you listening? Hope you're listening. Do not, whatever you do, take your friends or significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, to a house and hang out. My computer here is full of videos of people doing inappropriate things, realtors doing inappropriate things in houses, and it's on video and it gets sent to me. And that is a tough conversation to have with you. I don't need to see that. If your seller says, hey, it's 110 this weekend, we're out of town, you can use our pool, leave your clothes on. because they got cameras, and then they get all bent out of shape and they call me and they're upset and they're mad. So let's please not do that. Please. I don't want to see that. Am I making myself clear on that? Don't do that stuff. You're being recorded. Enough of that. I just got off my chair. All right. As much as we talk about F being a little funny because there are crazy videos out here, and that blonde wig sheds. F is super important. Okay. This is probably one of the biggest issues in real estate right now is F, wire fraud. Here's how I want you handling this. Yes, there's a wire fraud form we're going to go over. Absolutely. But you're going to tell your people, you are not to wire money to anybody without talking to me first. And I'm going to go so far as to say, when it's a big number, I think any number is big. I mean, who wants to lose? I don't want to lose $5,000, but I may want them to go to the title company, sit down with the title person, and wire the money while they're sitting there. And I know we have to do wire transfers. I hate them because here's what happens. They send, these fraudulent people send an email to your buyers that looks exactly like all the other emails they've been getting from the title company that says, hey, we close in a couple weeks. It's time to wire your money over. And they think it's legit. In reality, it's fake email address and it's fraudulent. And they wire that money and it goes off to Dubai. It's gone. Now your deal's dead. You know, everybody loses. If you're not having these conversations, then when this deal falls apart, we all get in trouble. The lawyers come after all of us. True story. We had an agent at JLA, his son. So agent at JLA, his son wired $340,000 fraudulently and went off to no man's land. Deal was dead. $340,000. Now, I don't know how they end up getting it back, but it was not quick and it was scary and it was, yeah. Normally you don't get them back. Within 24 hours, we can get it back after that. Oh, we can sometimes get it back. After that, it's gone. Just gone. So you need to do a good job. If you don't have any other conversation, everybody's worried about talking about your compensation and how you're going to get paid. Listen, I think the wire transfer or the wire fraud is a bigger issue to talk about. And here's the gig. I've been preaching to you about how do you prove your worth? It's this stuff. It's this stuff. It's knowing this contract and being able to explain it to them and say, hey, here's some key bits I want you to really focus on. You are not to wire money to anybody. That's how you prove your worth. All right. Then you get everybody's signatures. Folks, it's not this hasn't changed much. It's the same stuff. It's the exact same stuff that we had before. It's just you got to get comfortable talking about it because in the past we didn't talk about it because what was on the MLS is what you got paid. But if you have the conversation up front and say, hey, listen, somebody got to pay me. I don't work for free. And yes, most of the time the seller's going to pay me, but you need to be ready if they don't. If you find that one unicorn house you want where they're not paying me, then we're going to have to get some negotiations going on here. And I got to get paid because I can't work for free. My broker won't let me. It's that simple. It's that simple. This will be a 5-page document, not a 5-page document when it's done. All right. Here's the short form. I'm not a fan. And I know there are a lot of people that are a fan of this. I am not a fan. And let me tell you why. If you're representing somebody and you know we're going to go under contract and it's going to be a big deal, what about all these things that none of this stuff I'm talking about here, D, E, and F, not discussed. Attorney fees, limited liability, addendum, mediation, not discussed. Okay. So I feel like there's some liability here if you're only using the short form. My personal opinion. Okay. Does it serve a purpose? Yeah. And I'll tell you where it is. Go down to 5. Go down to 5. Okay. And right here. Full service or showing service. They've set this up. If you got somebody that calls you, maybe they call off your sign, maybe you're in an open house and they want to go look at another house or two later, and you don't know if they're going to hire you full service. They just want a showing service. This would be a good one for investors. You might just, if they're just going, you just want you to show them houses. So you'd check showing service and you'd put a fee in there. There's a fee right here to go show houses. Yep. I'll show you those. I'll show you those houses. It's going to cost you $100 for me to take you out and show you. That's what that's for. Okay. However, one key point here, if you get paid to do a showing services like that, you have to have the brokerage paid. You cannot take a check or cash from anyone. It's against the real estate rules. So if you're going to go out and show houses on the showing service and you're going to get paid $100, it has to be made out to your broker first. Then we have to cut you a check. It's not my rule, it's real estate rule. Okay. So understand that. Now, you got 2 boxes to check there. You can check full service and use this as the buyer's rep. You could. It's scary to me, but you could. And you would only have to explain one form. Just remember, there's a whole lot of things on that long form that does not show up in here. I'm actually surprised they did this on a lot of levels because we got sued for non-disclosure stuff, right? And now we got a form that doesn't disclose stuff. John's personal opinion. But you, by all means, can use this. It's a TAR form. Now, just understand, if you take somebody out as a showing service, that's 5 under showing service, and you're showing them houses, you still have some liability here as to what you have to do. If they want you to contact the seller for them, if they've got their own contract, they want you to submit over to you legally have to, even though it's showing service. You do have some liability there, some fiduciary duty there. Okay. But not a lot. So here's a question that came up, and think about this. If you could actually have a client under showing service that's doing the same thing with 5 other realtors. I'm just paying you to show me houses because I'm not under the full service. What's that look like? That could get messy in a hurry, right? That's what your investors are going to do. They're going to have these signed with 10 different agents, and they just want to go look at houses and whoever can show them houses. Okay. So at the end of the day, I want full service is my preference. Okay. That way you at least have something in there that says, hey, I'm going to get paid. I'm the only person you're working with. And we're going to go make this happen. All right. Now there's going to be a lot of people argue with me on this. They're like, oh, this short form is great. Is it? Is it? I don't know. Time will tell. But I don't want, so think about this. If you hand this to somebody and you don't explain the wire fraud and they have wire fraud, where is your protection? Where's the brokerage's protection? There's no wire fraud protection here. So there's a lot of pieces of this that I just don't like. I see the point. They wanted something, if you're going to go show 3 houses to somebody and they don't know if they want to buy or not, and you want to get paid $100 for showing 3 houses, totally understand. That's how it should be used. But if those ones say, hey, we want to write an offer, now we need to move that thing to full service because we got a lot more to do than just doing this for $100, right? So just know that it's here. It's how you're going to use it. Now, that being said, here's an amendment to that. All right. So this is the amendment. And it has some things in here. So A, if you're changing the market area, like if they're wanting to move in they want to move to a different market area, you do A. If your dates are changing. For 1507, okay, if you wanted to move from showing service to full service, that's how you would do that, or vice versa. Okay. If there's a change in broker fees, 1501 and 1507 only. If they're changing in fees, there it is. Okay. Now this is also, all right, this form's important, very important. You're out, you've got you got the long form in place, you're showing houses that we end up at a builder. Okay. The builder's got a $3,000 BTSA. It's not in the long form. You're only getting paid 3% there. You're going to have to take this. You're going to have to check box E. You're going to put $3,000 in there and put the property, because you got to have permission from your client to receive that money. That's where that's going to be the big use of this form. There it is. So to me, E is the section you're going to use the most. Okay. Because you're going to have bonuses out here. Maybe somebody's paying 4% and you got 3% in the buyer's rep. You're going to have to get permission to change that. And that's what this form's for. Okay. That's what this form's for. Yeah, you can change market area. Again, we got to be specific now. So if you've been showing in the Woodlands and all of a sudden they want to live in Kingwood, you're going to have to change that. It's just the rules, folks. We got to start using these forms for that. Okay. Or if you're on a showing service and you want to move into full service, here's how you do it. This form will do it. Okay. There it is. It'll be a one pager. The red will go away. It'll be a one pager when it's all said and done. All right. Here's an amendment. So this is I told you we're going to have this in here. So you've got the old buyer's rep in place. You've got the old listing too. Either one, this will work for either one, buyer's rep or old listing. So pre-24th buyer's rep agreement. This is the form you need. Yeah, you can go have a new one done. You could go back and have them redo the whole thing. Or you could just use this one form. Okay. Now they have made this clear at some point, this form is going to go away. Okay. This is kind of a temporary form because you need to start using anything you're doing from this point on is with the new forms anyway. This is really just for getting people from having to redo all of their paperwork pre-June 24th. So if you've got a buyer's rep in place, so you're going to go in and put on or about a date, which maybe it's June 1st, that the client and broker entered into a Texas real estate representation agreement effective whatever date you have this signed. Client and broker amend the above reference representation agreement as follows. And this covers you. Okay. Okay. For listing agreements, you got to put the property in there under one. And that's it. You're still going to use the same. Like if you're working with a buyer, you got 3% in the original buyer's rep that you put out there. None of that's changed. Okay. This just makes you current. So this tells you how little has changed from the old buyer's rep to the new one because they were able to change it. They were able to update it with one page. Okay. And the big part area is brokers prohibited from receiving compensation for brokerage service from any source that exceeds the amount stated in the representation agreement. You're going to see that over and over again. So basically, if you've got 3%, then we can't receive any more than that unless we get it in writing from the client. Okay. Where that comes from as part of the lawsuit, just so you guys know, is that buyers were finding out later that their buyer's agent got these massive bonuses or paid extra money that they didn't know about, and they thought they should have gotten some of that. And they felt like they were, and again, I've seen this happen. This is not new, where they're like, hey, we really want you. This house is a really good house. It's a really good house. And come to find out that house had a $10,000 BTSA on it. They felt like they were steering them to that house. Now, if you're going to get that $10,000 BTSA, the client has to know up front, hey, listen, there's getting this big BTSA. Okay. That's how you're, but this one, again, this form is for that at the top, by the way, that yellow and blue, I typed that in there. So that's not going to be on the one that you're looking at on Zip Forms or .loop or Transaction Desk. That's me. Okay. That's me. And so pre-June 24th buyer's rep agreement, come August 17th, if you're not under contract, you're going to have to get your buyers to sign this one page. I will make sure and remind you of that when we get closer. Let's say that it's not working between your buyer and you. Buyer wants out. This is the form you use. A lot of times people are like, I don't want to use you anymore, and they're just shoot an email and off it. Quit doing that. This is the form you use. This is how you terminate. Now, I want you to start using this because this is how you log the property you've shown them. So if for some reason they want to buy a house, they can't buy the ones you've shown them. And let me give you an example. We're dealing with this right now. I get a call, another manager, the agent manager gets a call. I get a call. This guy's all like worked up. I don't want to use this agent anymore. They're awful. They're bad. They're horrible. And the agent's like, I don't know what I did. We've been looking at houses. So after going back and forth, I said, no problem. We'll terminate it. I'll send you the paperwork. So agent sends over the paperwork, and then number 3 checks B and lists the property she's shown him. Well, he loses his mind. He's like, no, I'm not signing that. No. So he didn't. And guess what? He closed on one of those houses without using our agent. So we're going to go to court, and we're going to win because I got all the proof. He signed these documents and he wanted to go. I think in this case, another agent stepped in. and was giving him a deal to use her instead of our agent. And that's what he wanted to do. And he was not being honest. And so when we go to court, we're going to win this, and we are going to go to court. And I have no problem with that. All right. So use this. If you've been showing houses to somebody and they want out of their buyer's rep, that's fine. You kind of got to let them out, but just make sure that you get these, you fill this out correctly so that they can't go buy one of those houses just because somebody else stepped in and said, hey, if you use me, I'll give you money back or whatever. Okay. Make sure you do that. That's what this is for. All right. We got an IABS in place. We got them pre-approved. We got a buyer's rep, either the long form or the short form. So we need to go look at houses. It's that simple. See how this is working along. Now, we're getting to more of the contracts that you guys want to know about. We're getting there. Hang tight. You must become an expert in communities. Folks, geographic competency is a hot button for the Texas Real Estate Commission and TAR. If you've taken any CE classes in the last year or two, they talk about this, right? You've got to know what you're doing. And I get it all the time. People are like, hey, my sister wants to buy a house in Dallas. Can I go up there and represent her? Well, the legal answer is yes, you're a realtor in the state of Texas. But my personal answer is no. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know those neighborhoods. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what floods, doesn't flood. Think about it here. If you're somebody from Dallas is trying to come down and sell houses in Kingwood. Well, my whole neighborhood flooded. My house didn't. The house on either side of me didn't. Everybody else around me did. How are they going to know that? How do they know what areas flood, what areas have issues, what areas they don't? So just stay in your lane. Okay, stay in your lane. We have JLA agents across the entire state. So you can just refer it out, put a referral fee in your pocket. Your sister is going to get represented the way you would want her to get represented, and you don't have any issues. Again, personal opinion. New construction is normally the easiest transaction. I love new construction. I love it. They got their own contracts. They fix everything that's wrong. I love new construction. So make sure you're taking people to new construction if you can. Stay in their price point. It doesn't do me any good to go test drive Lamborghinis when I can't own one. I want to own one. So make sure that you know what they're capable of buying and stay there. What is your role in looking at houses? Folks, your role is not to show them where the bathrooms and the bedrooms are. Your role is to look around that house and see what you see. What catches your attention? Are there diagonal cracks across windows, which is usually indicative of foundation problems? Is the AC unit outside completely rusted? And you're like, well, at some point we're going to have to replace that. What is it that you need to be aware of? Another good example of this is all bedrooms up. There was a huge time, 2007 through like 16, where every neighborhood had 2 or 3 all bedroom up options. And they're usually the cheapest house in those neighborhoods. Now, you have people moving here from the East Coast. We're a relocation city, right? People are moving here. You're helping this person. Well, on the East Coast, every house has all the bedrooms up. So they don't know any better until they go to sell and realize that, wait, everybody wants master bedroom down. Why didn't you tell me that when we bought? Now, I know I've been down this road like, oh, I want to be right next to my newborn babies, my 1-year-old, my 2-year-old. That all sounds great. But now I've got a 16-year-old, and I'm glad I'm not right next to that. I don't want any part of that room. It's a mess. So in Texas, we have a lot of master bedrooms down, and they sell for a higher price point than all bedrooms up. Just the name of the game. Okay. You need to be having those conversations. That's your role. Right. Don't let your client get house drunk. 7 houses a day, 10 maybe a day. After that, they have no idea what you've looked at. Now they're starting to argue about which house they liked. Keep this. Now, we've all had that reload buyer that comes in from out of town, and in 2 days, we look at 75 homes. It's brutal. But for most people, let's not get them house drunk. And make sure you understand how to use the MLS. It's the key to this. New agents, spend time playing around on there, create scenarios, find houses. You want to be good on the MLS. Makes your life easier. I talked about net sheets when we started, and I threw this together. This was just a last minute, threw it together. You need to start having these. Again, HAR has one. All the MLSs have net sheets. Your title companies have net sheets. Your lenders have net sheets. Every app has a net sheet on it. I need you to find one you like and start using it. And here's a good example. I did this on a house. So this said, I picked a $290,000 house. They're going to put 20% down at 7% for 30 years. And I included the realtor fees. If you look at the bottom here, extra cost, realtor fee, they're going to pay me $8,700. Okay. And if we go to the next page, their total cash required to go to closing on this is right around $76,000. You need to start having these conversations with your people so that there's no surprises. Okay. Get comfortable using net sheets. Because then because here's everybody's greatest fear. Well, my buyer said they would pay me. I've got a buyer's rep. You send your CDA over to the title company that the buyer's paying you, and the CDA from the title company comes out 3 days before, and the buyer's like, I don't have that money to pay you. I can't pay you. I've heard it a dozen times. What are we going to do? Sue our clients? Probably. Depends on who they are. But if you have a net sheet up front, you're having these discussions up front, we don't have to worry about it because they already know. And you can get them to sign it. Look here, sign that. Hey, just want you to know you're looking at this house. We're going to put an offer in for $290,000. Here's what these numbers. Now, this is an estimate. Everything here says estimate. Estimated monthly cash required. Estimated prepaid expenses.
Just cut them down.
Get wrong.
Bottom piece will be there, but you won't really see it. Bottom piece will be there, but you won't see it.
Somebody was off mute. I had to mute them. So get comfortable doing this. It will save you a lot of grief, and it's just yet another protection that you get paid. All right. Okay. So we found a house. We've been out looking at houses. We found a house. We're ready to buy this house. We need to do the 1-to-4 contract. Now there's some things here. Now the 1-to-4 contract's not changed. When I go through this, some of you are doing it wrong. And even though you've been an agent for 10 years, 15 years, you don't do this right. So you need to listen closely. But there's some addenda at the end of this that's going to protect you. So walk with me through this. I fully expect the 1-to-4 to change at some point down the road. Fully expect it. It'll be the end of the year, first of next year. They're going to have to rechange some of this because it does not fly with some of these new rules, but it's going to take them a while to do it. But for right now, let's walk through the 1-to-4 contract. Now, couple of key points. Stop leaving blanks.
A sushi or something.
That just happened to the meeting.
Is it gone?
It was not on my end then?
It was on John's end.
They just said, everybody hold on. John's coming back. Give him just a minute.
Thank you.
Hang tight, everybody. It kicked him out. Hold on. I'm still in. Meeting's still live, but it kicked him out. So hang on just a second. Don't you love technology?
Yeah.
It's funny. We're on the same internet connection, but it kicked him out, not me.
Well, that's why we love you.
That's so bizarre. So bizarre. Zoom is not our friend today, obviously. Somebody said, I hope he can get in. He should be able to. The capacity is better. It's letting, we're up to like 315. We've been up to like 324. So if not, he can take my spot.
Potty break, everybody.
All right, let me check and see what we got going on here. Everybody hang tight, nobody leave. John is the host now. Let's see. I just saw a pop up. Let's see if he's back in. All right, everybody hang tight. I'm back.
That was fun.
Stop.
Don't ask me what happened there. I have no idea. But it's still recording, so that's good. All right, now I got to get back to where I was. I'm talking away and I'm talking to myself. So, but at least it didn't stop the recording, which is good.
Was it just you in the wig?
I don't know what it was. I mean, something went crazy. All right, we're right back here. 1 to 4. Okay, so key here is that quit leaving these blank. If you don't have anything to put in there, don't leave it blank. Put in NA, put in 0, but you should not leave blanks in contracts. Just don't do it. Okay. Also, once we get past number 2 on here, everything is negotiable. Regardless of what somebody tries to tell you, it's negotiable. So here we go. Let's fill out a 1 to 4. Again, we found the house. So you got all these other documents in place. Found the house, going to write a 1 to 4 contract. Parties. Okay. You got the seller and the buyer. Pretty simple. The lot, block, all that. Pull it from the tax records. Pretty simple. All right. Now we get down here. We start talking about improvements and accessories. Boy, this becomes an issue lately. People arguing over what stays, what doesn't stay. If it's attached, best description I've heard. If we were to take the house and flip it upside down and shake it, if it would fall, you can take it with you. If it didn't fall, it stays. So anything that didn't fall that needs to be, that they want to take needs to be excluded. See how easy that was? We'll talk about that more tomorrow with sellers. All right. If there's exclusions listed on the MLS, it goes in D. Sales price, A plus B equals C, folks. We're going to talk about that. You're going to hear that come up a lot. A plus B equals C. Cash portion. This is the cash. Now, they put a little new thing underneath that this last year. The term cash portion of the sales price does not include proceeds from borrowing of any kind or selling other real property except as disclosed in this contract. So if they're going to put $40,000 down and they have $40,000 in their bank, you're good to go. You can put $40,000 in there. If they're going to get that $40,000 from the sale of another home, that means there needs to be more documentation. You can't just put that there, which means you're going to have to disclose that later on. And there's addendums to that. Okay. Because that becomes a contingency. They can't put $40,000 in there without a contingency if they have to sell a house to put that $40,000 down. Understand that. I love it because I don't know how many times people were saying they had cash and all they were doing was get a hard money loan, but they were putting it in as cash and we didn't know it. Well, there's still things that are attached to hard money loans, which becomes an issue. So A is cash. B, if you've got any financing, if they're financing any money, it's going to fall under one of 3: third-party financing, loan assumptions, and seller's financing addendum. It's going to fall under one of those 3. Okay. Now, most of the time, third-party financing, and we're going to go over one. As soon as we're done with this, we're going to go with third-party financing. Loan assumptions. We're seeing some, and you would think it would be a great time to do loan assumptions. Let me explain to you real quick why we're not doing a lot of loan assumptions. Yes, so you've got a buyer that wants to buy this $500,000 house, and the seller has a 2.5% loan because they refinanced in 2021, and you're like, ooh, I'd like to take advantage of that. Well, okay, but you're paying $500,000 for the house. That loan left, all that's left on their loan is $300,000. So yes, you can assume that 300,000 at 2.5, but then they got to come up with the other 200 grand. They either got to get another loan or they got to pay cash for that. So they're out here, but there's some caveats to it. Also, if you're going to, most mortgages are assumable. Any government-backed mortgage is assumable for the most part. But the seller has to initiate that. The seller has to be the one that says, hey, my lender, I want to make this assumable, and there's some paperwork. The buyer has to get approved through that lender. They have to go through the process. It's about a 60-day process. It's not 30 by any stretch of the imagination. So they're out here. They can be done. Just need to understand how to do them and make sure that everybody's in the loop. Seller financing. We've seen a lot of that. And I have nothing against seller financing, except you have to make sure the seller owns that house free and clear. If you're going to do seller financing, you got to ask in writing, does the seller own the house free and clear? Because yes, there are such things as wraparound loans and all that. I don't want any part of that. That puts your buyer at risk. The seller has a mortgage somewhere else. I don't want you seller financing it because there's a risk of that not getting done correctly. So I hope I make myself clear on that. So A plus B equals C. So the total C is going to be what you're paying for the house total. Okay. Number 4, leases. We got residential leases A, fixture leases B, natural resource leases C. If you check one of these, then you are going to have another addendum. We'll go over those that needs to be attached. Okay. Residential leases. If there's a renter in the property, you're going to have that checked, and you're going to have to get the residential lease addendum signed by the seller. Just know if there's a tenant in there and there's a lease in place, the lease survives this sale. So if they've got 6 months on their lease, your new buyer can't kick them out. They can't. They're there until the lease is up. Now, if they're on a month-to-month, which happens a lot, they've been in the house 7 years, there hasn't been a lease signed after the first year, so they're automatically month-to-month, then you can give them 30-day notice and they have to vacate, but there's still a process to that, and you still have to get them out. So understand that. But that's A. B, fixture leases. Oh, this includes solar panels, propane tanks, water softeners, security systems, and so forth. If there's leased items in the house that are attached, then the seller has to disclose that. Now, I'm about the biggest anti-solar panel person there is. Can't stand them. I'm not anti-solar energy. I'm not anti-solar energy. I think they're great, right? Green energy, great. I'm anti-attaching solar panels to roofs in Texas, asphalt roofs in Texas. And I could spend 30 minutes telling you how much I hate these things. And if you've been on any of my calls, you know how I feel. I talked about it on Thursday call not too long ago. Can't stand them. Okay. If you're at JLA, and even if you're not at JLA, email me and I will get you this document. There is a flow chart floating around on our closed Facebook page. I don't think it's in Backpage, but I can put it there, of what to do if your buyer wants to buy a house with solar panels, or you have a seller that's selling a house with solar panels. I have a flow chart that takes it all the way down as to how you have to manage that. Look that up. A lot of people have them, and they're a big hot mess. Just saying. Natural resource leases. If you're buying a house in a master plan community, there are no natural resources to worry about out in the country. And we do a lot of country business. There may be, but just understand that most oil rights were sold off years ago and the owner doesn't have access to them anyway. Or even if they think they do, they don't even know how to get them. So that's another animal, but just know that there's an addendum for that. If they're selling off the natural resource leases, then you need to get the addendum signed on that. All right, moving on. Page 2, earnest money. You have 3 days, folks. Once this contract is executed, you have 3 days to get the earnest money and the option money to the title company. Now, that's one check to the title company. One check. So let's just say the earnest money, you're buying a $300,000 house. Earnest money is typically 1%. So you're going to write a check for that. That's $3,000, but then the option money is another $150. So now you're going to have your people deliver a check to the title company for $3,150. Okay, it's all going to be together. Now, you have 3 days, with the first day being the first full day. So if I were to execute this contract right now, 1037, 10:37 on Wednesday. Day 1 is tomorrow, Thursday. Day 2 is Friday, or is Friday. Day 3 is Saturday. You can't deliver it on Saturday. So then it goes to day 5, which is Monday by 5 o'clock. The best day of the week, and I normally do these on Friday, so I'm never on the right day. The best day of the week to execute a contract is Wednesday. You have the most days to get the earnest money and the option money to the title company, because you can't deliver it on Saturday and you can't deliver it on Sunday. So it automatically reverts to the next business day. Now, if I were to execute it yesterday, today would be day 1. Tomorrow will be day 2. It'll be due by Friday at 5 o'clock. It's that simple. Now, you have to get this there. There's a lot of, let's just say that I execute this contract today and my buyers change their mind tomorrow. You still have to deliver the money. Now, earnest money, not so much. You can get that back, you're kind of trading money, but you definitely still owe the option money to the seller. If you don't pay that option money, you don't have the right to terminate. You only can terminate tomorrow if you pay for the option period, which is what you're paying for. You're paying that $150 for the right to terminate at any time during that option period. So you need to know, you got to set the right expectation, Mrs. Buyer. When we execute this, I'm going to need a check. I'm going to need these checks. Okay. And you are going to lose that option money. Period. End of story. That's it. Okay. Get it over there, get it done. Now, if Monday happened to be a holiday, which it's not, but if it was, then it would go on to Tuesday. There's a lot of Monday holidays. It'll go on to Tuesday at 5 o'clock. So you have 3 days. So let me give you some advice. Would you quit executing contracts at 11:30 at night? Because day 1 starts at 12:01. Day 1 starts in 30 minutes. Wait till 5 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, get a full day out of it. I see no point executing contracts at 11:30 at night. Makes no sense to me. All right. At the top here, deliver to the title company. That is the title company. That is not your favorite escrow officer. So that's Capital Title, that's Hometown Title, that's Alamo Title, whoever you're using, it doesn't matter. First American Title. Now, if you've got a favorite person there, you can put that in parentheses. You could. But you got to list it, and then you got to put the address in there because many of these title companies have multiple addresses. Where are we taking this? All right. B, these are the number of days that you are asking for a termination. I do not do less than 7. You need at least 7 to get an inspector out there, because it's during that option period you can have your inspections done. I like 10. Some people push back on 10, but I like 10. But 7, we can do it, but don't do less than 7. All right. Title policy 6A. It's negotiable. It can be a seller's expense or a buyer's expense. It's negotiable. Put either one in there. Issued by the title company above. Now, 6-8. I'm gonna draw a line on this because it's that important to me. If I get my line to come up, maybe no. Yeah. This one right here, I'm pretty adamant about. You're always going to check this box. And this is typically a buyer's expense. Typically. So the reason for this is nobody's ever explained to me why you would check the first box, the little I. Always going to check the double I. It's a buyer's expense. And what this is just shortages in area. It's extra insurance from the title company. That's all it is. It's extra insurance, and it's cheap. It's like 1% of the title policy or something. It's always like 80 to 100 bucks. It's dirt cheap. Do it. It's extra insurance. You're going to want to do it. Do it. Don't question it. Just make it happen. If your buyer's actually, you're getting extra insurance in case there's shortages or issues with the title policy. You want that. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense to people. Next. All right. Survey. A lot of agents mess this up. We're going to skip the first number 1, and we're going to talk about number 2. Number 2 is within X amount of days, the buyer shall obtain a new survey at buyer's expense. Number 3 is within X amount of days, the seller is going to get a new survey at the seller's expense. If you know there is no survey, it's clearly labeled in the agent remarks, there's no survey, then you're going to do number 2 or number 3. Somebody's paying for one. Okay. Now, if your buyer's paying for a new survey, don't put 3 days in there. Put like 21 days. You want to get through option period and all that before we order this survey. You just do. All right. So I'm going to say 21 days on 2 or 3. But if you don't know if there's a survey or you're told there's a survey, then you're going to check box number 1. And I'm going to put 3 days in there. So box number 1 is they don't tell you either way, or they tell you there is. You're going to check box number 1. And you're going to give the seller is going to have 3 days to provide to the title company and the buyer via the buyer's agent a copy of this survey and a fully notarized T-47. I already argued with somebody this week, and I can't wait for the day that I don't have to argue with people on this. You have to, listing agents, we'll talk about this tomorrow, you have to provide the survey in 3 days, but you also have to provide a fully notarized T-47. We do not do that at the title company. I know that was the way we were all taught. Well, we'll just get that notarized at the title company. It's wrong. That is not following the rules. If you don't do that and you provide a survey, but you don't provide the T-47 or you don't provide a notarized one, then technically the buyer can ask for a new survey. And the seller's got to pay for it. It says in bold, if seller fails to furnish the existing survey or affidavit within time prescribed, buyer shall obtain a new survey at seller's expense. I don't know how many times these listing agents find a survey 12 days later and we put 3 days in there. Well, that becomes the seller's going to have to buy a new one if we want to push it. Now, you've got a seller and a buyer box there at the end. Typically, you would check buyers. So all that says is if the title company, they provide a survey within the 3 days, because I like 3 days up there. The title company, the lender doesn't like the survey and like we need a new one, then it becomes a buyer's expense. Let me give you another scenario though. You put 3 days up there and the listing agent produces a survey in 10 days and the title company comes back and says, yeah, we're going to need a new survey. Sorry, that's a seller's expense. Even though we put buyer's expense on here, they didn't deliver it within the 3 days. That becomes a seller's expense. And I will stand my ground hard on this. Okay. Now, objections. Let me tell you what doesn't go there. Residential use. Stop putting residential use there. This is a residential contract. You don't need to put residential use there. You wouldn't write a residential contract for anything other than residential use. Here's what goes there in D. If they want to do Airbnb, you would write in, if your buyers want to use this house for an Airbnb, short-term rental goes there. If they want to park a travel trailer out there, maybe they got an RV that they're going to park in the driveway, they would put RV parking. Maybe they want chickens. Chickens would go there, or horses would go there. If they want to run a business, a hair salon out of their house, that would go there. Because what that's going to happen is if the title company or your review of the HOA docs comes back and says that chickens aren't allowed. I think chickens are allowed everywhere in Texas, but I'm using this as an example. Chickens aren't allowed. Then if you've got chickens there, you could terminate and get your earnest money back because the HOA doesn't allow it. That's what that's for. Right? Now, number of days, I like 10 days. That gives them time. If they do find something funky, they can try to correct it and they have 10 days to do so. All right? But residential use does not go there. Stop putting it there. I know every time I see somebody do that, they've not been to boot camp because I preach this hard. HOA is or is not. That is E2. It's pretty simple. Is it or is it not? Buyer accepts the property as is, or buyer wants the following. I see so many people check number 1. In reality, you should be checking number 2. And let me tell you why. Number 2 is there. If you drive up to the house and you see a blue tarp on the roof, So you know it needs a new roof, and your buyer's like, we want this house, we're gonna need a new roof. Go ahead and ask for it right there in 2. No reason to pay an inspector $500 to come out and tell you it needs a new roof to try and negotiate it during option period. If they're not gonna put the new roof on, then why wait till the option period when you've already paid option money and an inspector to tell you they're not gonna do it? So negotiate that right there. Big items you would negotiate right there. If there are no big items, let me tell you what goes here. House to be professionally cleaned prior to closing. That's where that goes. If nothing else goes there, that goes in number 2. So start using number 2 and write that in. Okay. H, residential service contract. This is where you'd put in a home warranty. Now, does home warranty cover everything? No, it's not a bumper to bumper like buying a new car. But it's nice to have. They do cover some things. As long as you explain up front to your buyers, hey, I'm putting this in, seller's going to pay for it. You're going to get a home warranty. It will cover some things. It will not cover anything that is already listed on an inspection report. If you get an inspection report and there's something wrong, they're not covering that. They're not. Okay. So just know that there. 8A. Would you guys please start doing this? If you're related to the buyer or the seller in any form or fashion, you have to disclose it. And it can be simple. Buyer related to buyer's agent. You don't have to give them details. You don't have to tell them buyer is buyer's agent's third cousin from your mom's side. No, buyer related to buyer's agent, seller related to seller's. That's all you have to put. You have to disclose this, folks. And let me just tell you, nobody's ever said, I'm not taking this offer because they're related. That never happens. The only time it becomes an issue is when they want out of the contract and they come to me and like, hey, we're gonna need to bust out because the seller's gonna bust out, which you guys all know once we're executed, seller really doesn't have a way out. Oh no, we get to back out because your buyer's agent did not disclose that they were related to the buyer, so we get to back out. And there's nothing I can do about it. You have to disclose. If your brother is on an LLC and the LLC is buying the house, you have to disclose. If I can connect you back, have to disclose. If you have to ask me, then there's a high liability there, then just go ahead and put it in there. If you're like, well, what about my ex-husband's sister? Just put it in there. It doesn't really matter. Nobody cares, but put it in there. All right. Closing of the sale will be on or before. Hold, please. Stop closing on Friday. Sale, the closing date will be any day but Friday. We don't close on Fridays at JLA. Stop, stop, stop. Okay? Stop, stop, stop closing on Fridays. Did I make myself clear? Close on Wednesday. Don't close on Friday. And let your people know that we're going to probably be closing. I think I missed the page. I will go back. Hold on. Let your buyers know it will be on or after. It's rarely before. I know it says on or before, but it rarely happens. You need to set the expectation on the closing date. You need to tell them, because we're writing this 30 days out. We're shooting for this day. As we get closer, I'll tell you how close we're going to be to that day. But I don't know how many times people are like, well, okay, we're going to close on Friday. We're leaving Saturday for Jamaica. No, no, no. What if this thing gets moved 3 or 4 days? You need to give them a window there. Yeah, we're shooting for that date. We need to give them a window and let them know there's a chance it may close 3 days later. Maybe. I missed this page and I apologize. I don't know how I just went right on through it. So we're backing up. 4, required notices. That's where you're going to put your mud notice. If you're doing a mud notice in a mud, you got the mud has to be provided by the seller, then you would put that there. Seller's disclosure notice. You've either received it or you haven't. Either it's in the documents or it's not. Real simple. Give them 3 days. If you don't have it, it's not in the documents, 3 days to get that to me. Now, here's the other thing. They get that. So you have a 7-day option period and they get you the seller's disclosure on the 3rd day. If you read this, you get another 7 days from the time you receive that. So you get more days. From the time you receive the seller's disclosure, you have 7 more days to terminate because of whatever reason you want to, right? Now we've got the seller accepts the property. And this is where it was as is at the top or number 2. And we're going to start using number 2. Sorry, I skipped that page. Hope I didn't throw you off too much. Home warranties, H. you're 8, again, you're going to disclose if you're related. Closing, we're not closing on Fridays. Stop closing on Fridays. Just too much goes wrong, folks. If the wire doesn't go through until, and the wiring on Fridays stop at 4. So if the title company doesn't have the wire by 4 o'clock, they can't take possession until it funds on Monday. And now they're all mad because they got moving trucks outside. They've got Aunt Franny and Uncle Festus coming in to help them move. And they can't close until they can't take possession until Monday. So quit closing on Friday. Close on Wednesday. They can do all their moving on the weekend. Pretty adamant about that. I want, upon closing and funding, I hate sellers leasebacks. Hate them. Because we've been burned so many times. So many times. You go to do your final walkthrough and all their furniture's in the way and you can't see anything. Or maybe it looks really good, but after they move out, 3 days after you buy, they move out and they scratch the wood floors up. Who's covering that? My other big issue is this. You're the seller's selling. Seller's selling. And the day they close, their homeowner's insurance is over. Okay, so the homeowner, your buyer's buying and the buyer's getting homeowner's insurance, but they're getting, that's my main dwelling. They're not getting renter's insurance. So you got the seller still living there and something happens. Whose insurance covers that? Think about this, folks. I hate seller leasebacks. Do we have to do them? Yes. We're going to talk about that form and I'm going to tell you how to work it, but you're going to ask for like $5,000 deposit. It's amazing when you ask for $5,000 deposit because your broker's a jerk. You ask for that, how fast they can get out of those houses. It's quite mind-blowing, actually. Okay. 12AB is seller's contributions. Now there's a limit here. Depending on the loan type and how much money they're put down, there's a limit. You need to get that number from your lender. Don't make that up. Make sure you're talking to the buyer's lender. Don't make that up. By the way, number 11, special provision, we skipped it because you're not allowed to write anything there. Don't put anything in there. Don't, unless I give you permission to put something there, don't put anything in 11. 12B, seller's contributions. Get that number from the lender. Quit making stuff up and just sticking it in there. Doesn't work that way. Because technically the buyer's paying a 30-year mortgage on whatever number's in there. If you really want to break it down, and I can break it down for you on a whiteboard, and you can show you where the buyer is, again, whatever number they put in there, they're paying interest for 30 years on it. So if you don't need it, don't use it. There's nothing on this page. I mean, you need to understand what's on this page, but nothing to explain on this page to your clients. Notices at the top. This is one of those things I did wrong as a new agent. Do not put your information there. You need to put your client, you're the buyer's agent, put their email address there. This is for the title company specifically, but I always had this issue like, I'm not giving my client's information to the other side. Well, guess what? When you put your information there, now you become liable for all notices and you don't want that liability. So stop doing it. Back to these check boxes. If they put it here, it's probably important and you need to know what you're putting here. And do you need to use it? If you're doing seller financing, there it is. Third-party financing, and there it is. Residential lease, even though I don't like those things, they're there. Seller's lease, there it is. A couple of things that will go in other. I'm getting ready to show you a new form where you're going to have to check other and type it in. Another one that goes here is non-realty addendum. So if you're conveying the washer, dryer, refrigerator, lawnmower, whatever, via non-realty, you're going to have to check the box next to other and list non-realty addendum there. We're going to talk about non-realty addendums because there's another way around that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Here's where it's executed. Once all four, or however many people are on here, the buyer and the seller have signed this, you have to execute it. I don't understand why people don't execute these things. How do you know what the effective date is if you don't execute it? The last person to sign executes it. So buyers, agents, you submit this over and the sellers sign it. The listing agent needs to execute it. And then you got to notify all parties. It's not fully executed until you've notified all parties that it's been executed. Execute these things. Broker information. Don't be a lazy buyer's agent. Fill this out. Now, if you represent the buyer and that's JLA and the listing broker is a different brokerage, then you're going to put your stuff on the left-hand side and you're going to put the listing broker on the right-hand side. If you're bringing a buyer to a JLA property, then you're going to do it all on the right-hand side. Okay. If it's both JLA, the whole thing goes on here and you'll walk through it. You become the selling associate and this sells you the email address. It's all on the right-hand side. Okay. Now at the bottom, you're still going to type in what you're getting paid here. Now, along the way, you're writing this 1-to-4 contract. You've texted that listing agent and said, hey, what are you paying? And they told you 3%. So you're going to put that down there. But notice, nobody signs this. So this is not legal and binding. Nobody signs this page. It's not legal and binding. There's no initials, no signature. It is part of the contract. You could argue that. I'm going to show you how to solidify that you're getting paid that 3%. Because again, we texted them. We know we're getting 3%. This is where you get receipts from the title company on your option money and your earnest money. Get these receipts. Title companies will email you these after the money's dropped off, but just make sure you have them. You're going to need them in your files. All right. Now, we just wrote a 1-to-4 contract. I know it's 11. I'm sorry, folks. I'm running high. Kim's reminding me it's 11. I'm getting close. So hang tight with me. Very important forms here. Okay. We're close to being done here with buyers. We're close. Make sure this new form, I've typed at the top. This form is an addendum regarding broker fees. Now watch me here. You're going to want to make this an addendum to your contract. So you're going to go back here to 22 and you're going to check other right here. And then you're going to put this form in. You're going to type that in. This says the fees going to be paid in Harris County. The listing broker is going to pay me. So if the listing broker says, I'm paying you, okay? If the seller's paying you, you're going to put that there. Most of the time, the listing broker is going to pay you because it's in their listing agreement that they're going to pay you out of their money. We'll talk listing agreements tomorrow. And you're going to get the buyer to sign this, the seller to sign this. This is an addendum. This is how we start to prove that you're going to get paid, okay? This addendum confirms or creates an obligation for the payment of broker fees. It says it right here at the bottom. This addendum confirms or creates an obligation for the payment of broker fees. Looky there. Okay. Seller and authorization. E. Seller and buyer authorize escrow agent, title company, to pay listing and other broker at closing in accordance with this addendum. All right. There we go. This is how you're going to get paid. You're going to add this addendum. Now I'm going to take it a step further. It's a little redundant, but this next form needs to be part of your paperwork too. You've called that listing broker, listing agent, and they said, yeah, we're paying 3%. Well, guess what you're going to use now? This compensation between brokers. You're going to fill this out. The listing broker, you are the cooperating broker. Buyer's agents, we're cooperating broker. The property that we're talking about. Your client, this also registers your client so they can't take your client from you. The term, and you're going to put in here, they're paying me 3%. In our scenario, A, sale, 3%. And you're going to get this signed. This all goes away, by the way. So the red's gone. You're going to get this signed by the listing agent, and you're going to sign it. And this then holds the listing agent accountable for paying your 3% at the closing table. Everybody was worried, how are we going to get paid? These two forms make this happen. You're going to make this one part of your contract because it's an addendum. Check in box 22, other, adding it. And now you're going to get this signed by the listing agent so that you get paid. They told you. They text you back. You've texted them. Are you paying anything on 122 Pinelands Park Lane? Yes, 3%. Sweet. You send this bad boy over. Send this bad boy over. Okay. Now, This form is if you're taking your buyer to a FSBO. We've always had this form. It was called registration agreement between broker and owner. If you're taking your buyer to a FSBO, you want to get paid, here's how you do it. Just fill this bad boy out. Nothing's really changed. If it's a lease or if it's a purchase, so this covers sales and purchase and leases. So if you're taking for sale by owner and you want your 3%, you're going to check 6A, little a, write in 3% of the sales price. Okay. And make sure on 7A, owner acknowledges receipt of the attached information about brokerage services. So if you're doing a FSBO, you got to give them an ABS. And that they're only representing your prospect. You're not representing the owner. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes the owner wants representation. So you would check 3. Okay. This is a good form, folks. If you're doing it for sale by owner, this is the one you use. This is how you determine you're going to get paid. Okay. And you can see the owner signs it and the broker signs it. Third-party financing addendum. So these are all addendums. You've got the 1 to 4. Before you send this over, this is the stuff I want you getting done. That's why we're going in order here. And we know we've got financing, right? We got financing. We're going to need third-party financing. So you're going to check the type, conventional, VA. Texas is one of the 6 states that has its own VA program that's on top of the national VA program. Go to a Texas Veterans Loan Program class. You're going to thank yourself later. Really great stuff. If it's FHA, by the way, write this in now, make your notes. If you check C, your buyer's lender says we're doing an FHA loan, pre-approval says FHA loan. It's going to be a section 203B as in boy. C is 203, B as in boy, FHA and FHA insured loan. There are other FHA loans, you're just going to, they're like 0.1% they ever get used. So 203B. USDA loan. Love these loans. The only true 100% loan in my book. Just understand that they're only used out in the country, United States Department of Agriculture. So they're out a ways. And there are household income maximums on this. So you can't make a lot of money. I don't know what it is now. It's less than 100 grand or right around 100 grand. I'll tell you what USDA loans are good for. Single school teachers that are taking jobs out in rural areas. Great loan. I don't like reverse mortgages, so don't do F unless you've got a really good reason for it. But reverse mortgages, I don't like them. Never see them work well. G, other financing, AKA hard money loans. If you're getting a hard money loan, that's what goes in G. There it is. So you got to check one of those. Approval of financing. Next page. Okay. A. Most people need to get their financing approved. You're going to check the top box. I like no less than 21 days in A. No less than 21 days. If you can get 29 days, that's even better. Or 27 days, that's even better. Property approval. A lot of people get confused on this. A is for the buyer's ability to get financing. B is the property's ability to be financed. So a lot of times people call me like, oh, John, I'm like, the appraisal hasn't come back yet, and our third party's up in 2 days. No, you're comparing apples and oranges. You're comparing the buyer's approval with the property approval, and those are apples and oranges. Okay, you have until 3 days before closing to get that appraisal back. And if it doesn't make appraisal, you can back out and get your money back. It has not tied to the number of days you put up here, not tied to it. Okay, so understand those are 2 very different things. 4, FHA, VA requirements. This is if you're doing an FHA or VA, you're going to put the number in there. Remember when I said A plus B equals C on the 1 to 4? C goes right there. The total amount that you're buying the house for goes there. It has to appraise for the total amount, not what you're financing. The total amount. C is what goes in that line on 4. Right? That's your third-party financing. Addendum concerning right to terminate due to appraisal. You only use this for conventional loans. It says it at the top. You don't use it for FHA and VA. So this is similar to why you put the money right here for FHA and VA. This is a form for conventional. I don't want you using number one. If you're doing, by the way, if you're doing a convention, every conventional loan needs to have this attached. Every conventional loan needs this addendum. Don't use number one. Number one means your client's basically writing a blank check. No matter what it appraises for, they're buying it. You don't do that. We've seen some crazy appraisals. So do not do number one. Number two is a partial waiver. Now, here's why you would use that. And we don't use it a lot right now, but here's why you would use that. You got a buyer that says, this is my dream house. We want this house. I don't care what it costs. And you're like, well, I did a CMA. The house is worth 300. And you're wanting to offer 325. It may not appraise. And they're like, well, that's okay. I've got cash to cover the difference. Then you would check partial waiver. And in that scenario, then you might say, they've got 10 grand. We're offering 325. They got 10,000 extra dollars. So here's a scenario, 325, right? We're offering 325 and they've got 10,000 extra dollars to work with. Then in this box right here, you would check 2 and you would put 315. Okay. So we got 300,000, 325,000 on a house that you're not sure is worth it. Okay. In that scenario, but they've got 10K to work with. Then you're putting 315 here. So they offered 325 on the A plus B equals C. And what we're saying here is, as long as it appraises for 315 or more, we're going to go ahead and buy it. Now, if it appraises for 305, we get to back out because it didn't meet the 315. If it appraises for 325, we don't have to do anything. If it appraises for 320, we only have to put 5K. But we're saying we've got extra money. We're offering 325. It's a shaky, but we want it bad, and we would throw an extra 10 grand at it. So as long as it appraises for 315, we're good to go. Okay, a little bit confusing, but you need to start using this. Not necessarily, you're not going to use it a lot because most people are like, I don't want to buy it if it doesn't appraise. Now, here's where you need to be using this 99% of the time. You're going to do box number 3. And the number of days here, I'm going to use I want this to be like 30 days, right up to closing, because we got to wait for it to appraise. And sometimes that's right up to closing. And in I, you're going to put A plus B equals C. You're going to put C there. And you're like, well, why would it? Doesn't the third party protect me? Not necessarily. So if you do box 3, you have 30 days. It's got to appraise for the full price. In our case, 325. If it doesn't appraise for 325, we get to back out and get our money back. And yes, there's some language in the third party on that, but let me tell you what happens. Sometimes your buyer is using a bonehead lender, such as Rocket Mortgage, and they don't really care. They have no relationship. And your buyer's putting $100,000 down. If it doesn't make appraisal, Rocket Mortgage may say, well, we're not denying it because you got an extra cash to cover it anyway. And therefore you can't use the third-party financing, because in order to use the third-party financing, the lender has to deny the loan. And somebody like Rocket Mortgage may not deny it because you're putting such a large number down. So every conventional loan, worst case scenario, you're putting this in, you're putting box 3, you're putting the total amount for C, and you're giving them 30 days. That way you can back out. If the lender doesn't deny the loan and it doesn't appraise, you can still back out. It has to appraise for whatever that amount is in C. Okay. Why are we not moving here? Trying to move to the, oh, I know what, so my bad. Okay. We don't go into a lot of this. There is a seller financing addendum. Make sure that you understand. I'm not going to try and explain it today. Just know there's an addendum. If you're checking seller's financing, a lot of times I want them getting, really understanding. This is one time where they might want to talk to an attorney because there's just a lot of moving pieces to seller financing and you don't want to get burned. Okay. Contingency. Man, more people need to do this. If your buyer is got to sell another house to buy, no matter where they are in the process, you've got to use this form if you're making an offer. And let me explain this form to you. The contract is proceeds from the house that they're selling. So A is the house they're selling. That date is the date you're trying to close on your new house. So they're selling this house, but it needs to close by the time you close on your new house. And you're basically telling the seller, hey, listen, I got to sell my other house. I don't have a slam dunk. I've got a good deal going here. I don't have a slam dunk. Will you take in contingency? And if they say yes, but you've got to give there's got to be some concessions or some protection for the seller. So B and C starts to protect the seller. So you put in this form, and the seller listing agent is going to keep it, yes, it's pending, but continue to show, because we've got a contingency, and they get another offer, a better offer, an offer that doesn't have contingency to it, because they're still showing the house. Even though you're under contract and you're in first place, you're contingency, and they get another offer. So they've got to come to your agent, you, the agent, and say, hey, I've got another offer. But B tells you how long you have to make a decision. So B, you're going to put 1 day typically. If you're the buyer's agent, you're going to try and get, a couple days. Listing agents may only take 1 day. And you got to make a decision. So right now, if no other offer comes in, but your buyer can't close on their sale by this closing day, they get the earnest money back, because their contingency is like, hey, I need some protection too. But now the seller's coming to you and saying, hey, I got another offer we want to take. And I know you're in first place, but you got to make a decision. I'm going to give you 1 day to make that decision, or however many days goes in B, but I like 1 day. Are you going to waive this contingency, which means you're staying in the game and you're confident your house is going to sell and you're going to close on mine? Or are you going to terminate so I can take this other offer? And they have 1 day via B to choose that. Now, C, if they decide to waive it, because now we got, what's the chances? I've got this good offer that I've got to pass up on because you're going to waive the contingency and stay in the game. You still got to sell your house. You got to give the seller something for this, because there's a chance they're losing a good offer. That money that goes there is negotiable. Buyer's agents are going to try and put $500 in there. Listing agents are going to try and get 1%. Just depends on the negotiation. Right? But your buyer's got to know, if their house doesn't sell, you're using a contingency, their house doesn't sell and they can't close, they're going to lose all their earnest money as well as whatever money they put in C. So make sure you're counseling with them. But I'm going to tell you, you have to disclose, if your buyer's got to sell another house, this form has to be there. It's a fiduciary duty that you owe everybody in the industry. You can't say, well, we're already at option period, it's going to close anyway. No, do not do that. Form's there for a reason. Residential leases, if there's a lease in place, we talked about this. This is an addendum. 4A, if you checked 4A because there's a tenant in there, you need to get all of this filled out. I'm not going into detail here. We'd be here all day long. Okay. 4B is checked. They've got security systems, solar panels, propane tank, whatever that is. You're going to use this addendum. Get this filled out. Backup contract. We have these. So your buyer loves this house. There's already an offer. Here's how you submit a backup contract. Okay. And you're going to put some dates in here. Now, here's the thing. If you do a backup contract, it looks exactly the same as if you're submitting a regular contract. You're just going to have this in here. And what I mean by exactly the same, they still have to drop off option money and earnest money if it gets accepted. Still have to, now, you don't have to do inspections yet. None of your dates start until you're notified, hey, we're taking your backup. The first deal fell out. You're always in second place. But the minute they notify you, that's when your option period starts. That's when your third-party financing period starts. That's when it all starts. And you may have to update that. But using a backup contract, this is how you do it. This is the legal way to do it. Now, what's nice is if the first deal falls out, you're automatically the backup. They can't put it back on the market. They can't we're going to put it back on the market. No, if you're the backup, you immediately slide into first place if the first deal falls out. There's no more negotiations. Okay. Just know they will get if the first deal closes, they get their earnest money back. They don't have to give them their option period back. Most do, but they don't have to. They could lose it. Short sales, not seeing a lot of them. There's an addendum for it. We're not seeing them yet. I don't think we're going to see them. Just know there's an addendum for short sales if it happens. HOA. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Most HOA docs are online. Most buyers don't need them, but if they do, you can pick who's going to provide them. 1 is the seller shall obtain. 2 is the buyer shall obtain. So there's, or maybe if they've already got it approved, that's 3. Make sure you put in C that there are going to be some fees associated with HOA transfers and stuff. There's a number you need to put there. That's how much that the buyer is willing to pay and the seller pays the rest of it. I kind of like $250. That's always been one of my numbers, but it can be any number there. And then make sure in authorization, I always check that the seller shall pay for anything else the title company needs because they're the ones selling it. It's their HOA. Okay. So D, make sure you check. There's a lot of times that box is left with blank and then people are trying to negotiate it later. Okay. Go back here. Short sale. We already talked about that. Oh, my bad. Went the wrong way. Okay. This is the intermediary form. If you bring a buyer to a JLA listing, this form has to be filled out. Now, stand pretty strong, and there's going to be a lot of questions on this because everybody thinks that buyers are going to go directly to the listing agent now. Well, listing agents, we'll talk about this tomorrow. Leave them unrepresented. Don't sign a buyer's rep with them because that creates a lot of issue. I don't think you can legally represent a buyer and a seller correctly. I wouldn't let my parents buy a house and work with the listing agent. So why are we doing this with anyone? There are some scenarios. Maybe it's an investor. Maybe it's somebody that's already negotiated and you're just helping out. But you can't legally, or you can legally do it. You can't do it well. Or you can't give them knowledge. If you represent both the buyer and the seller, you just stand there and pass information. You can't give advice. You can't say anything. You can't give your opinion. You can't say anything. So I don't really like it, but just know intermediary also happens if you bring your buyer to a JLA listing. I'm going to tell you how to fill this out. You got the seller, you got the buyer, and JLA is the from, and the property is the property we're talking about, and the date. Now, D is where everybody messes up. If there is a different agent as the buyer and a different agent as the seller, I will be appointing, because you got 2 different people. You're going to check will and the owner's agent and the buyer's agent. You're just going to fill it in. Okay. Will not is the one you check if you're representing both sides. And that is, I'm just not a fan of that. So we need to have those discussions. If you're doing that, you need to talk to me about why you're doing that. I know you see dollar signs, but the best way to do that, if you're the listing agent, is just don't put them under buyer's rep. Whatever's in your listing agreement, you're going to get paid. You don't need to. If they put 6% in there and there's no buyer's agent, you're still going to get paid. There we go. Okay. Just be careful with that. A lot of times we rush to put people as listing agents. We rush to put people under a buyer's rep and we don't need to. We don't need to. Seller provides this lead-based paint. And the reason I put this in here, seller should have this, a good seller in the document section of the listing on the MLS has the survey, the T47 lead-based paint. This is on any house built before 1978. I don't understand why we still have lead-based paint issues. I don't know that if people are still licking window seals or whatever they're doing. I can't wait for this to go away, but it's still out here. The reason I put this in here, seller should provide this, but you buyer's agents have to give your buyer this pamphlet. It's in zip forms. It's in all the places. If your buyer's buying a house 1978 or below, you got to fill out this form and you got to give them this pamphlet. Let me tell you what the fine is if you don't. It's like $10,000. And all you people like, I've never given that pamphlet to anybody. You better start. Okay, 1978 or below, you got to get this done and you got to have proof that you gave them this pamphlet. Start doing it. Non-realty addendum. If your washer, dryer, refrigerator, lawnmower, VW Bug, whatever's going with the house that's non-realty needs to be put on here. Now, if they list in the MLS, washer and dryer included, you still have to do a non-realty addendum. Just because they list it doesn't mean it has to go. If you see washer, dryer, refrigerator included on the MLS, you better do a non-realty addendum, or you're going to do your final walkthrough and there's not going to be anything there. Okay. legally it should say a dollar amount. A lot of times people still put zero. I'm not seeing a whole lot of hubbub about this. The legal beagles will tell you there needs to be a number. I've never seen something go haywire because there's zero there. I'm going to leave that up to you, but I mean, legal side, I got to tell you, put a number there. This is one form you don't send. Do not send this form to the lender. Do not send this form to the lender. They don't want to know that they're financing non-realty items. Okay, so careful with this form, what you do with it. You could basically not do the non-realty and let the buyer and the seller do a contract within themselves off to the side, like a sales contract between the two of them. Okay, you don't even need to do this. It's there. You can use it, but careful with it. If you're going to get it signed, just don't put it in a packet over to the lender because they will kick it out in a hurry. Temporary lease. I don't like these. This is a lease back. I've told you that. If you're going to do it, make sure that you charge them for it and make sure that there's a big deposit. Okay. Do not be doing these without a big deposit. Number 5, put 5,000 here, because what happens if they damage the house? What happens if they don't get out in time? I want a dollar amount per day. I want a big deposit, and I want a large holdover fee on number 19. They will get out. But if you put zero money, zero deposit, zero holdover, boy, you've just created the ideal squatter situation. Because you're basically telling them you can live here for free. And then if they don't leave, how are you going to get them out? Well, you can go to a judge like, yeah, I let them stay for a week for free, but now I want them gone. Good luck with that. Quit doing this for $0. So your offer is accepted. You got to get the earnest money and the option money over to the title company. All time periods start the first day after. We've talked to that. Buyer picks the inspection company and orders the inspection. You buyer's agents never do that. You're going to negotiate repairs. You're going to go to closing. A couple things need to happen in there. Any changes that are made to the contract are done on an amendment. After it's executed, you don't redo it. So for amending sales price. Number 2 is during the option period. They want these things repaired. That's what goes there. Okay. Now, during the option period, your buyer comes out, they do inspections. Inspection report comes in, you guys review it, and they want some things done. You have until 5 o'clock on the last day of the option period to get this amendment signed and executed, or the seller doesn't have to fix anything. So don't drag your feet. Don't drag your feet. I'm a big fan of negotiating money, not repairs. Everybody has a brother or an uncle or a family friend that can fix stuff. Boy, do we have issues coming back on us later. They didn't really fix it. They got a receipt for it, but they didn't do the work. It's a problem, right? So if you can negotiate money, it's usually the best. But if you have to negotiate items, you can also, add a page if you need to. If there's too many items to put in too. Everything is done on an amendment, and you can have 6 of these. You can amend the closing date on one. You could do repairs on another. You could waive the option fee on this. Whatever you want to do. Okay. If the buyer wants to terminate, so we're in the option period and there's foundation problems and roof problems, and they're like, I don't want any part of it. This is how we terminate. Now, when you terminate, and there's other reason besides option period, you've got to terminate with one of these items on here. Okay. You got to give them a reason to terminate. You can't just say 2 days before closing, I want to terminate. There's a problem there. You can terminate 2 days before closing, but there may be some legal battles. Make sure they understand that. And once they terminate, notice only the buyer signs this. The seller doesn't have to approve it. Once the buyer signs this and sends it over, it's done. They've terminated. Now, once they've terminated, we got to release this earnest money. And we fight about this and fight about this and fight about this. Buyer always thinks they deserve the money. Seller always thinks they're the. You got to do a good job up front of explaining to the buyer about the earnest money and say, hey, if we cancel for these reasons, you can get it back. If you cancel 2 days before closing and we don't have a reason, you're going to lose this money. Do you understand that? So then we're not fighting. Okay. But I will also tell you this, listing agents. If we have option or earnest money sitting at the title company and it's not been released, yes, you can put the house back on the market once they terminate. Yes, you can take other offers. You cannot close until that earnest money is either given back to the buyer or received by the seller. This form's huge. Okay. And here's why. Read number 80 yourself. The undersigned buyer and seller release each other, any broker, title company, and escrow agent from any and all liability under the aforementioned contract. This is the final document to release everybody's liability. If this is still sitting out here, we can't sell that house. You can't move it to another title company. Stop doing that. It's bad practice. Stop doing that. Get it cleared. Even if the seller's owed it, and you're like, just release it to them so that we can close on this new one. But do not just let it sit out here. Do not. You find yourself in a legal liability. Ha.
John,
Yes.
how about if it's a builder that won't sign the release of earnest money or?
Well, the builder can't sell that, shouldn't be allowed to sell that house to somebody else then. So the builder's the seller, then that's going to sit out there. They're not going to be able to do anything with it until then. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So hold on. This is a chair moment. This is a chair moment. This is a good one. This is a chair moment. This is my favorite. Okay. My favorite. You will do a final walkthrough. And you will do that final walkthrough on the way to the closing table. Stop doing final walkthroughs 3 days before, 7 days before. Stop. What are you doing? You don't think anything could possibly go wrong with that house? You need to do your final walkthrough on the way to the closing table. You got a 10 o'clock closing on Wednesday. You do the final walkthrough on the way. Then you know without a shadow of a doubt, there's nothing wrong with that house. Now, you get there and the utilities are off. Your advice to your buyers is we don't close. If you can't go through that house and make sure everything works, listing agents, you've got to do a better job of making sure your people leave utilities on. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But you're going to do the final walkthrough on the way to the closing table, and you're going to have them sign this form. I'm getting really adamant about this. I'm blown away by people that are doing final walkthroughs 4 days before. But John, my buyers, it's a mail out. Fine. You're going to go do the final walkthrough on video, and you're going to record that video so you have proof, and you're going to show them everything's working and running and doing fine before they sign the day of, not the week before, not the weekend before. Final walkthrough on the way to the closing table. Have I made myself clear? Because this one, the legal liabilities on that are monstrous. I like this form, general information. I told you earlier, it covers a lot of stuff. You should start using this. It's a CYA. Use it. Wire fraud. We're done here, folks. We're the last piece of this. Wire fraud. You have to get this signed. Your buyers need to know up front, we are not wiring anybody money because you're going to get in trouble. You're going to talk to me first. Then I'm going to talk to the title company. We're not doing anything unless we know we are wiring it to the right people. Do not wire off an email. Do not. Please. Closing and follow-up. Do you do a closing gift? That's totally up to you. Just make sure when you do a closing gift that it's something they're going to remember you. I like wine, but once I drink that bottle, I can't remember who gave it to me. You need to manage the breakup. Sometimes you've been dealing with these people for 30, 60, 90, 122 years, and you just ghost them. Now, we've all walked out of the title company, and we deleted our buyer's number the minute we walked out because we never want to talk to them again. Usually that's family members that we have much problems with. But for the most part, you need to manage that breakup because you want referrals. You want to sell their house again in 7 years. You want to be the person that they tell everybody was the best realtor that walked. So you got to manage that. One of my favorite things to do was I didn't bring a closing gift to the closing table. I stopped by their house the next day or a couple of days later, brought them their closing gift, chatted about the house, talked to them. It's just a great way because they're so excited the day of closing, they can't see straight. And then the follow-up. At the bare minimum, you should be sending them a an anniversary card every year. Congratulations on your 1-year anniversary of being in your house. Congratulations on 2-year anniversary of being in your house. You got to follow up with these people if you want them to reuse you. And this is something everybody struggles with. And that's a whole other class that we can talk about later. All right. So let me recap. Buyers agents, you're going to get paid. 2 forms. I put them in there. That's how you get guaranteed to get paid. It's that simple. But you got to explain to the buyers up front, if you're showing houses to somebody that is not paying, the seller's not paying, then they're going to have to pay because you don't work for free. And you're going to have to just text. So everybody's like, well, how do we know? You're going to have to text the listing agents. I mean, you could call them, but I'd rather have it in writing. Just text them and say, hey, what are you paying? And then I'm going to get the form signed, right? We talked about those forms. So it's a simple process. Okay? It's not as complicated as people think it is. You know, when you go back here and you look at these forms, you just getting two extra forms are going to make your life easier. That's these 2 forms right here. Oh, that was for sale by owner. So this is the compensation between brokers and the addendum to the broker's fees. You get these 2 forms attached to your 1-4 as part of your process. Now, you're not sending this one to your buyers and sellers. This is just to the listing agent, but this will make sure you get paid. It's that simple. Now it becomes negotiation, right? I think you're going to find some people that say, are you paying? And they're going to say, well, it depends on the offer. I think we're going to get a lot of that. Well, then you're going to submit your offer with these documents and say, here's what we're offering. This is part of our offer. It's an addendum. It's part of the offer. We're going to see where it goes. But buyers, so everybody's freaking out over this. Stop freaking out. Nothing I showed you today is that complicated. It's basically the same stuff reworded that we've always had with the addition of this new form. But this form was always here. It was called registration. Now they made it compensation, but it was always here. But we're just registering your people and saying, these are mine. Okay. You know, this is going to help me make sure that I get paid. Now, do we get this signed before we show houses, before we show their house? You could, but if I've got a text, you know, how much time you want to spend, right? I'm not probably, you know, you texted me, yeah, we're paying 3%. I don't think any listing agent wants to sign every one of these things over and over and over. Okay. I don't think they want to, unless we're going under contract. But as part of your offer, I would send the 1-4, this addendum over for your buyers to sign and then the sellers to sign. And then I would send a separate DocuSign over to, this is a separate DocuSign over to the listing agent and say, hey, I'm making this offer on this house and you agreed to 3%. I need it in writing. That's what this is going to look like. Okay. This doesn't go in your buyer and seller packet as part of your DocuSigns. This is separate. And this is just saying you agreed to pay. Here it is. Rock and roll. Okay. And so these 2 forms are how you're guaranteed to get paid. Again, I had somebody text me and like, when do you get this signed? Again, you're not going to send this document to everybody before you show. That'd be a disaster. Just get a text message that says, hey, or an email, or somebody may, who knows how they're going to. By the way, you're not using Showing Time or Showing Smart or any of the showing services. They're linked to the MLS. So you can't have in their instructions either, by the way. There's been some questions on that. When you submit the offer, you're going to get these done, not before you show it. They're giving you a text message, and we're going to know, folks, within 6 months or a year, we're going to know those brokerages that communicate well and they've got good listings, and we're going to be one of those. Mark my words. I catch you as a listing agent not communicating because you're busy and people blowing me up because I don't want my phone ringing. Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of your listing agent for 3 days and I don't know what they're paying. I'm going to lose my mind. Get ready for that conversation tomorrow. Okay. Get ready for that conversation tomorrow. But we're going to be that good. We're going to be that listing brokerage that every buyer's agent wants to bring their buyers to. But this is how you register it. This is how you guarantee to get paid. These 2 forms right here. Super simple. The rest of it is you just getting comfortable explaining to your buyers, I got to get paid. And before, it was already put out there as to what I was going to get paid. Now, I don't know until I dig into it. So I need to know that if they're not paying me, you're paying me. It's real simple. It's real simple. We're going to do some role playing. We're going to do some of that. It's real simple. All right, folks, that's it for today. I'm super sorry about the glitches. I think Kim got it worked out. At one point, we were up to 325 on here. We may have a new, so watch Back Agent, watch our Facebook page. If you're non-JLA, you've all got my number. I put it out here before. Text me and I'll make sure and get you the new one. We're going to probably have a new link for tomorrow, so we won't have this issue. Okay. Because Kim was on the phone with him and they promised us it wouldn't happen again. But here's our numbers. If you text us, if you're non-JLA and you want to text one of us and get this information, we're going to have it ready. Within the next 15, 20 minutes, we're going to update Back Agent for tomorrow. And we're going to update our Facebook page for tomorrow. But just know we got this here. Brian Schroeder raised her hand. Brian raised his hand. Brian, you got something?
So my question, I asked it in the chat, but I don't know if I clarified my question. I understand you're saying on the MLS and stuff like that, you cannot put the amount of commission that you pay. Can you put anything in the agent remarks, like where to go to find out? So you can even say, call me to find out agent commission?
No.
Nothing at all?
Everything I've heard is it can't be mentioned any form or fashion. Because somebody even said, hey, what if we put on there buyer's agent friendly? And you're like, no. So I don't think they're going to allow anything whatsoever to be. And I think right now they're running scared. And they're I mean, I explained to somebody, I feel like some of this stuff is like taking a military cannon or a military tank to go hunt deer. It's overkill. Like and I think everybody's just kind of scared. It's going to get easier and it's going to work through. But for right now, I mean, you could try it. All they're going to do is tell you to take it down. So if you want to say, call me for buyer's compensation or call, buyer's agent friendly. If you want to try that in agent remarks, all they can do is yank it down. I think they're going to yank it down. I think they're going to tell you not to do it again, but they're going to give you some leeway up front because there's so many moving pieces to this and it's worth a shot.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, John, they addressed that in Har's Zoom deal they had, what was it, Monday or Tuesday? Monday?
Yeah.
They addressed that deal
they
about
were,
that. Yeah.
They were pretty adamant in that you can't have anything whatsoever.
Yeah, they were.
That was I got tired of that call because that's all I felt like they were talking about. That was a tough one. But yeah, I think they're gonna err so far on the side of caution. But they did say, I mean, even in that call, they said if you want a sign writer out front that says 3% buyer's commission, you can. I mean, rock and roll. And I've seen some people in different forums on the internet say, "Oh, you can't do that." No, you can. Like, I mean, they're pretty adamant about it. Anybody else? I mean, I'm here. I got nowhere to be. So, I know Kim and Amanda. We're going.
A KV Core squeeze page that has that compensation for that?
I don't believe so because KV Core is IDX fed from MLS.
But it's a separate website. It's a squeeze page. It won't have any link. It can't have any links back to that house, but it could have that address 123mainstreet.com KV Core and have that squeeze page on there.
And I think that's that. Yes, I think that can happen. The challenge is, just like I talked about, I could go out here and I could build a JLA commissions webpage, right? Well, then we got to have agents that actually load them. I got agents that won't get on KV Core and actually do the work they need to do to sell now. So I think it would be nice to have a system, but I think that getting listing agents to use the system and upload that would be a disaster. But I think you could create that on your own for your listings if you want to and have them out there.
Like I live down here in Santa Fe, like, can I put one of my real estate signs out in the front, like in my yard, the front, and put something about commissions, and then that I live here, that real estate lives here or something like that?
I mean, you can do anything you want as long as it's not on the MLS. You can advertise, I even saw somebody that, and this is not in Houston, not in Texas, actually. They're taking a stance in their office. He's advertising that his office is 3% buyer's commission on every deal. Now, I think that's a bold statement. And I think that's going to be hard because there's going to be some sellers not willing to pay that. But he's trying to make it known that if you bring a buyer to one of their listings at that brokerage, you're guaranteed 3%. And his philosophy was, if I make this my brand, Buyer's agents can guarantee to get 3% for my listings. That's going to be my brand. I don't have to worry about it. Not a bad play. I think it's a bold play. Because we all know there are some sellers out here that only want to pay 5% total. And you're like, well, I'll split that 2.5, or whatever that looks like. Right. And yeah, there's anything you want to do outside of the MLS, you're free and clear to do. Anything else? Kim and Amanda, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, John. So
No,
I
you're
know
right.
for my team, we have a website, and I normally have each agent give me their separate link to the MLS if somebody clicked on that property. I need to remove that, right?
If
And
you're going to advertise commissions on your website, yes.
okay.
If you're not advertising commissions, buyer's
It can
commission,
stay.
then you're good. You can leave it alone. But if
Okay.
you're going to use your website and say, you know what, this house is 3% and this house is 2.5 to buyer's agents and this house is 0 to buyers, then it can't have any link back to the MLS. Kim and Amanda, did you guys have any reoccurring questions that we need to address on a big scale here? I think that is a no.
I don't think so. We've got a lot of people that have already logged off.
Yeah. Well, we lost about 100. So tomorrow will be better. We have this saved. I know I'm going to have to piece these things together and make it work, but I'll get this put out there. Tomorrow, a lot more folks, the selling side's got a lot more involved than I think the buyer side does, to be real honest with you. How to explain it, what it's going to look like, the different paperwork that goes into it. But nothing here today was complicated. Just know the rules and just get comfortable explaining them and using those two forms to guarantee you get paid. I think that's it on my end. If you guys don't have any more questions, I'm going to log off and get this thing set up for tomorrow with the new Zoom link, so we don't have any issues. Anybody have anything else for me?
John, do you think we can put it in Zillow? Or you think Zillow
Nope,
falls
because
under the same guidelines?
Zillow pulls IDX from the MLS. They won't allow it either. So Zillow gets their data from the MLS via IDX feed, so they're not going to allow that either, unless they find a workaround. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to this. Listing agents are going to have to be able to text back. I think, you know how you have like automatic responses in your phone, then you just copy and paste 3%, 3%, 3%, 2%, 2%. I mean, it's a pain. I get it, but I'm not showing a house unless I know I'm getting paid. And they're going to have to, the listing agents are going to have to be ready for that. It's going to create more work. It's going to create more work. Yeah.
Hey, John. Hey, buddy. So if we share our HAR listing on our Facebook page as a link, promoting it, we cannot put buyer's agent gets 3% on there, can we? Or can
So
we?
if you're taking a link from the MLS and putting it on your Facebook page, you cannot type at the bottom buyer paying 3% with that link attached. Now you could do a separate post with the picture of your house and the address of the house and 3% to buyer's agent on there, but it can't be linked back to the MLS in that particular post.
Okay.
Correct.
Hey, John.
Yep.
I had a question. Okay, and this is just thinking way ahead in the future, but this kind of how my mind works. If the MLS is straight up saying no commission, don't advertise it, no links, we want nothing to do with the commission, then isn't that kind of setting the realtors up to get sued? Like, I feel like there's some missing information here that is not being shared, and I feel like now the liability is on us.
So one thing the answer is yes, but not on us. Okay. We're protected by HAR, TR, NAR. We're protected, right? Houston Realtors, Texas Realtors, we didn't get personally sued in this lawsuit, even though we were the ones that were doing it. They went after NAR. So we're protected. But yes, buyers' lawsuits are coming next. Just watch. This just sets up the perfect storm for buyers to say, wait, everybody, play this out. You're a new buyer, first-time home buyer, and you're out here like, I'm at a disadvantage because for the last 50 years, everybody that got to buy a house had the seller paying for it for the most part. And now I'm at a disadvantage because you changed these rules and I don't have the same opportunity. So yes, absolutely. Going to be buyer lawsuits coming next. Just wait. That's not our problem.
Hey, John.
Yep.
John, hi, it's Sharanda. Okay, so I've taken 6 pages worth of notes, but I'm using my phone because I got kicked off of my computer, so I couldn't see these forms very clearly. But
Okay.
Just the 2 forms that you talked about, the compensation between brokers, is the one form, and the second form was registering my people. Can you tell me what that form was, please?
Oh,
Yes. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head yet, but I got them right here. Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute.
Thank you.
Here. No, you're good. You're good.
Sharanda,
So-
the Bootcamp binder is also uploaded in Back Agent, so you can
Yes.
access all of this.
All these forms, this whole thing is sitting in Back Agent right now. So you can go and pull these off and look at them and talk with them. But the addendum regarding broker fees, which is an addendum to the contract, that's TXR 2406. And then when you're registering or compensation between brokers is 2402.
24.
2402.
TXR.
But yes, folks, this entire presentation is setting, you're going to go into Back Agent, you're going to go into the document section, and I've got a whole folder that is virtual bootcamp. And
I got a question. Oh,
it's
sorry.
there. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Virginia, we have appraised all the homes, like with the 6% in it, right? Because it goes with the sales price.
Built
So
in,
does
yes.
anybody think that would have any, it's not so bad on a lower end house, but it's a big nut on a higher end. But it would actually, if you say, I think you know what I'm saying, but I don't know how to say it.
No, so Virginia, it's been one of my arguments because it's my belief, and there's some people that like to argue with this with me, that buyers have always been paying their own commission. It's built into the sale of the house that they're buying, and it's part of it, right? So, that's my biggest frustration is that the owners, the sellers of these houses, they didn't pay the buyer's agent when they bought. Okay, so they now don't want, they as a seller, they don't want to pay, like, wait, you took advantage of that when you bought and it's built into the price of the home, and now you don't want to do it. And I think as long as we do, I mean, I'm going to die on this. I want to die on this sword that as long as our listing agents, and we're all listing agents half the time, right? You list the house, you work with both. As long as the listing agent goes out here and says, let me explain to you how important it is to pay a buyer's agent. You don't have to, but let me explain to you how important it is and what that's going to look like. Then none of this is going to matter. It's just making sure that we get it in writing, because now we had the MLS that had it in writing, and hey, that's what's on the MLS. That's what I get paid. Now we got to get it written on one of these documents, which will help us get paid without them backing out anywhere along the way. So, I still think we're going to still have business as usual, but even now in the last year or two, we've had people that they want to pay 2%. They want to pay 1%. Like, we've always had those people. But I think as a general rule, most sellers, if you educate them, will be like, yeah, I mean, the seller paid for my buyer's agent whenever I bought. So yeah, it's already built in. So you're 100% right, Virginia. I agree with you 1000%. And I think that it's something that's got to be conveyed when we're doing listing agreements and listing presentations.
And I think the other norm has been that when a listing agent took it at a lower percent, they normally took it on their end.
Typically.
Right? We still put it out at 3, and then it would be on the other side. It was like, all right, I'm not so strong here. I'll take it out on me. But I want you to get your house sold.
What I like about the new listing agreement is I think that people are going to pay more attention to it, and it's going to be spelled out in there pretty clearly. So I also will say this, you're going to have to get ready to disclose agreements. I think, we've always gotten to like, well, I don't have to give anybody that. I think there's going to be a lot of cases where we're going to be asked to show our listing agreements and asked to show our buyers reps to prove that we have this agreement to get paid, because it keeps referencing them in this paperwork. pursuant to a previous contract, pursuant to a previous agreement, well, then it's going to be more common for them to say, show me, prove it. You got buyer's rep, prove it. And that, as long as we're doing our paperwork correctly, then we'll have our leg to stand on. We'll be in a good spot.
Okay.
Yep.
Which is good.
I'm sorry.
John? Hey, bud.
Yeah.
Quick thing. I just heard from somebody else outside the brokerage that accepting the offer is not contingent upon them signing the broker agreement. And if that's the case, then we technically would have to get that signed before we even send the offer over, correct?
Well, you shouldn't you anyhow?
So here's my statement with that. Okay. You're talking about this. I think what you're talking about is the agreement between brokers. If this is the reason that I like this form, okay, addendum for broker fees. This is an addendum. This is part of the 1 to 4. You're going to put it in there. It becomes part of it. And this is letting everybody know, hey, we're getting paid here. This is what this looks like. Now, you're right. The 1 to 4 can be signed. This addendum can be signed. All can be signed. This is not signed yet, right? This is a side agreement. But if you have this and they won't sign this, now I got a legal battle because you guys agreed to it. Why did you not agree to this, right? This is what, I mean, again, everybody on several of the calls I was on, they're calling this the new buyer's MLS, right? Getting this signed holds them. Because again, in the past, what was on the MLS is what you got paid. It is what it is. This is what this is for. But yes, technically you could have a 1 to 4. And here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a ton of agents not getting any training. They're going to submit their 1 to 4. And they don't have anything in writing, even if they got a text message from the listing agent saying, yeah, we're paying 3%, but there's nothing in writing. Kind of like having washer and dryer included on the MLS, you still have to do a non-realty addendum. There's nothing in writing, and you get ready to close and you send your CDA. We're like, no, we're not paying that. We have no documentation that says we have to pay that. That's why this has to be in there, and you got to get this signed. Now, what you have to go back to, I would push to get this signed within the option period, because then you're going to have to go back to if they refuse to sign it, you have to go back to the buyer and say, hey, they're not signing this. We're in the option period. If they don't sign this, I got to get paid. So you're going to have to pay me. See where this is going to get funky? But you technically could send this over and say, hey, we're writing an offer. I need you to agree to this before we write this offer. You could put this in DocuSign, send this over to the listing agent, say, I'm writing an offer, but I need your confirmation you're paying me before I submit you the 1 to 4 offer. But that's kind of a gray area, right? Because now we're starting to put our money ahead of, but it really isn't our money anymore. It's our buyer's money, right? Because if the seller's not paying me, the buyer's got to. So now I get to do that because I have their permission.
So should we have either one of these forms signed before we do the showing?
I think it's overkill. I think that I think a lot of listing agents would lose their mind to be like, dude, show the house and then let me know if you like it. Then I'll sign it. Because as a listing agent, some of these houses get 20, 30 showings. You're agreeing to this 20 or 30 different times and then nobody submits an offer. You could. And I'm not saying it would definitely be in your advantage to do it. I think that the listing agents are going to push back on it.
How do we hold them to, if they say they're going to pay 3% on text or email, how do we hold them to it?
Well, then you're going to have to get this signed as part of the offer, though. That's when you come in with this and say, hey, you told me I need this signed now before I submit the offer.
Gotcha.
Yep. I mean, you could do that. You could send this over and say, hey, I'm getting ready to show your house. I need you to sign this before I go show it. You could. You absolutely could. I think it'd be a lot of work. Because how many times have you shown 30 houses before they decided on one? You do all this work and you go in like, we hate this house. You're kind of like, ooh, did that contract and they don't really like this house. I think looking at I see where you're going, Charlie. Like, why would I write up a contract if I can't guarantee I'm going to get paid? Then maybe you type this up as when you're writing the contract and you send this over to them first and say, hey, I'm going to submit an offer, but I need you to sign this first before I submit it because it's contingent on you paying me. You can do that.
Yep.
I see there's no legal issue with you doing that.
Hey, John.
Yep.
Would you agree with submitting this with the offer, or are you against that?
So you can't, I wouldn't submit this with the offer because the buyer and the seller aren't signing this. Is between the brokers only.
Right.
But I
Okay.
would submit this with the offer because this is basically the same thing. Somebody's paying me. We're getting paid 3% by the listing broker. D1. Now it's just more of a notice that, hey, this is part of the offer. This is what this looks like. But if they kick this back and say, I'm not signing that, then we know we're not going to get paid and we got to go a different route. So this is the one that you're putting with your offer. This one is going directly to the listing agent, and it has nothing to do with the buyer or seller.
Okay.
So,
got it.
so John, can I ask a question?
Yeah, that's why we're here.
So originally you had stated that we learned that the listing agent's broker was no longer allowed to pay the cooperating broker directly.
Not true.
However,
Yep.
okay. However, on one of these forms, it clearly states that now the listing broker can compensate the cooperating broker. So has that changed from the original statement?
It sure has. And it's not changed in every state. Texas has taken this stance, which I think is an interesting one, right? I mean, I watched so many videos after the lawsuit and they said, no more are listing brokers going to be paying them. But when we go through the listing agreement tomorrow, it clearly states where they're going to pay the listing broker and the listing broker is going to pay the buyer's broker. You are correct. That is a big change from the original information that came out. Now, the seller could still pay the buyer's agent directly, but most of the time it's going to just go through the listing broker and on out to the buyer broker.
Okay, we have another question.
Yep.
Hey there. Okay, so I used to, when I was explaining the listing agreement to a seller, I used to say that my brokerage would pay the buyer's agent out of what the seller, whether it was 5% or 6%. And then I would say, and then out of that, my brokerage takes money and they pay the buyer's agent. Is that not correct to say?
It will go tomorrow when we go through sellers. We'll dive into that, but yes, it's still the same. It can still be the same.
Okay. And it's okay to say that that's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're paying me and I'm paying. Yeah. No, that's, and as long as they know, actually, I think the listing side is much more clear now than it was. If you'll remember on the listing side before, it had it broken up. Like it was talking about how you're going to get paid. The listing broker is going to get paid X amount of dollars. And then it was like 9 paragraphs later, it talks about what you're paying the buyer's agent. Now they slammed all that together. So there's no confusion. It's easy to talk through that. We'll go through the seller's side tomorrow, and I think it'll make sense, but you're still going to explain it the same way because that's still allowable to do that. So not a problem. Anything else, folks? Again, huge apologies for technical difficulties, but I think we got through it. I will have this recorded. I will get this posted today. And I will, we will have a new link for tomorrow so we don't have any of those issues and we'll be good to go. You guys take care, be safe. Again, pound away with all of your questions. We want to get them answered. We want you feeling super comfortable. Take care. Catch you later. See you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock.